281. Intelligence. Mu Yue. When Obito shouted, "Begin," Teacher Chen and Mu Yue didn't rush in. They stood facing one another, calmly observing. Mu Yue took the moment to scan Teacher Chen. The man's panel appeared in his mind. Name Chen Long, chakra 48,000. Skills, Leaf-style Taijutsu, proficient 7,000 50,000. Leaf Dragon God, proficient. Fire Release Chakra Nature Transformation, skilled 2,800 3,000. Mu Yue had expected Teacher Chen to be a skilled Taijutsu user, but he was surprised to see two nature transformation skills so close to proficiency. That meant Chen's ninjutsu wasn't weak compared to a typical jonin. Genjutsu even showed up on the list. Mu Yue thought, against a true powerhouse, it still comes down to Taijutsu, but Chen was no ordinary jonin. They both look imposing, Shinobi Genma said, watching. In a ninja school practical exam, students usually attacked immediately to seize initiative. Since neither knows the other's abilities, they're probably probing and gathering information, Ebisu added, pushing his sunglasses up with his middle finger. Obito scratched his head. They've just stood there for half a minute. How can you tell all that? It was the obvious explanation. Both wanted the other to move first. Teacher Chen, being the senior, expected Mu Yue to act. Seeing Mu Yue hold his ground, Chen assumed Mu Yue might have a trick and decided to make the first move. Fire Release, Dragon Fire Technique, Teacher Chen shouted. He formed the signs, condensed chakra in his throat, performed Fire Release Transformation, and spat a straight stream of flame. The Dragon Fire Technique launched a linear column of fire, roughly the thickness of an arm, not a huge conflagration, but a precise, powerful blast. Fire Release? Isn't he supposed to be Konoha's top taijutsu guy? Obito blinked. He'd expected Teacher Chen to use a devastating kick, like body flicker into a blow that could topple trees. Having great taijutsu doesn't mean your ninjutsu is bad, Ebisu explained. Konoha's jonin are usually well-rounded. When you don't know an opponent, a long-range ninjutsu is the safer bet. Obito nodded, impressed. So Ebisu, you really know your combat stuff. Why don't I ever see you in the grade-level practical exam? Ebisu said nothing. He usually got knocked out early. Shinobi Genma slapped his shoulder. He talks a good game, but he folds in actual combat. Or maybe you two are just too strong, Ebisu shot back dryly, looping an arm around Shiranui's neck. Despite his tone, being chosen to represent his class at the exam did mean his skills were decent. Teacher Chen's Dragon Fire met Mu Yue's response. Fire Release, Dragon Fire Technique. Mu Yue formed the same signs and spat his own stream. He'd only practiced the move once, so his proficiency was low, but his Fire Release Chakra Transformation was perfected. His stream boiled out twice as thick as Chen's. When they collided, Mu Yue's thicker blast won, driving Chen's back and forcing him to cut the technique and vanish with a chakra burst from his feet. The remaining fire punched through where Chen had stood, carving a black pit. Chen didn't flinch. A ninja who could be useful in a Jinchuriki fight should be able to handle this. He leaped into a tree and from the height began to fire transparent blasts of compressed air. Wind Release, Vacuum Bullet. Mu Yue mirrored him without hesitation. Same hand signs, same condensed blasts of air. Mu Yue wasn't deeply practiced with Vacuum Sphere either, but he'd recently gained a proficient-level wind release transformation. His blasts repeatedly bested Chen's. Where the air bullets struck the ground near Mu Yue, they left small craters. Chen's side took worse damage. Trees shredded, the earth cracked. Wood chips and dust blew through the clearing, leaving Chen disheveled. Teacher Mu Yue's strength is unexpected, Shinobi Genma said, eyes glued to the duel. When both sides use the same ninjutsu, the stronger user's chakra and transformation determine the outcome, and Mu Yue had come out E'd twice. Obito bit his tongue. He wanted to tell everyone Mu Yue's mission-level ninjutsu was far stronger than what they saw, but Mu Yue had explicitly told him to keep quiet. In terms of ninjutsu, Mu Yue is superior, Ebisu conceded, but we still have to see taijutsu to know who has the advantage. Chen's strength is taijutsu. Chen decided to switch styles after two probing attacks had been repelled. Standing in front of his students, he couldn't afford to keep losing face. Your ninjutsu is excellent, but be careful. I'm going to fight at full strength, he called. Mu Yue smiled. Don't worry, senior. My taijutsu isn't as refined as yours, but I can hold my own. He wasn't being modest. Without the mark or the 8 gates, his taijutsu truly was only competent compared to Chen's mastery. If he used those things, however, raw force could break technique. Chen inhaled and locked his expression. Mu Yue silently changed his breathing pattern, shifting from a steady rhythm into a razor-focused state to raise his physicality. Chen gathered chakra in his lower body and tore forward with blinding speed. Mu Yue answered with several bursts of shave and moved to meet him. Metkai, who had been watching nearby, grew serious. He understood the danger of what was about to unfold. Leaf Great Whirlwind. Mu Yue spun a kicking attack, channeling power into his legs. Chen met the kick calmly, parrying with both fists, then countered with a triple spinning kick. Leaf Gale. The kicks hurtled toward Mu Yue with brutal leg power. He dodged the first two but couldn't avoid the last. He blocked it with both arms and was shoved backwards 7 meters by its force. Has Konoha hidden a capable young ninja from me? Chen thought, impressed. Mu Yue's speed and strength were decent, decisive in his movements. Ebisu, watching the field shift as Chen repelled Mu Yue, felt the scales moving in the veteran's favor. Metkai and Obito still trusted Mu Yue implicitly. Guy especially knew what Mu Yue could do when pushing his body. Mu Yue expected to be at a disadvantage in a pure taijutsu exchange. Chen's proficiency and experience were superior. He intended to test how far Chen's mastery could take him. Mu Yue silently moved into the marked state of rock breathing. His chakra drained faster, but his focused breathing amplified his body. Power surged and his aura climbed. The grass around him stirred though no wind blew. Senior, your taijutsu is exquisite, but I have some powerful techniques too. Be careful, he warned. 8 gates? Chen thought. He'd seen Metkai use them and recognized the wild aura, but Mu Yue's presence was different. Not wild, but profound. Chen concentrated on fighting his own fight. Mu Yue opened the transparent world, sharpening his control over his body. With it, he could read motion like an X-ray. Chen felt the change but pressed the attack, fast enough that Ebisu thought he was almost instantly in front of Mu Yue. Chen launched another lightning-quick kick. Mu Yue, seeing the movement as it started, stepped back and slipped the attack. The transparent world let him predict the motion before it completed. Coincidence? Or can he read my moves? Chen tried Leaf Gale again. Mu Yue's figure blurred, and each spinning kick missed, 3 in a row. Once might be luck, 3 times was skill. Chen was unsettled. It felt as if Mu Yue could see inside his body and know his intent. After the last kick missed, Mu Yue advanced. He lifted his palm and slashed lightly through the air. It looked like a small motion. Chen burst chakra into a punch to meet it. When Chen's fist met Mu Yue's palm blade, Chen's face changed instantly. That gentle-looking strike carried an appalling force. Bang! Chen was blown backwards at high speed, crashing through 3 large trees before he finally came to a stop. What technique was that? I felt no power, yet it has such destructive force. Chen's expression turned deadly serious. This was a high-level taijutsu he didn't understand. Shiranui Genma and Ebisu were stunned. Ned. Teacher Chen sent flying? He was just... Shiranui couldn't finish. High-level ninja combat was bewildering. Both were close-quarters taijutsu fights, yet the tide shifted completely from one moment to the next. Teacher Mu Yue's taijutsu is actually that powerful, Ebisu said, shocked. Even Chen, Konoha's strongest taijutsu specialist, had been put at a disadvantage. 282. Konoha Shenron vs Hirutora. Teacher Chen patted the dust from his clothes and stood. He had spent half his life refining physical prowess. His body was far tougher than an ordinary shinobi's. This blow would not stop him from continuing the fight. After that exchange, Mu Yue's reputation in his eyes had completely changed. Mu Yue's physical prowess rivaled his ninjutsu, and he'd even mastered techniques Teacher Chen himself could not fully grasp. What a pity, Teacher Chen thought. If he'd been born 10 or 20 years earlier, I would have sparred with him every day. My physical prowess could have been even greater. But it was too late for that. His body was already at its peak. Too many fights now would only hasten its decline. Still, encountering such an opponent at the height of his strength was a blessing. A smile crossed his face. When Teacher Chen had boasted about his strength, others egged him on, but he had his pride. He had once claimed his physical prowess might even beat the 3rd Hokage, if not for Enma. If it were bare-handed, perhaps the contest would be different. Leaf Dragon God. Teacher Chen did not hesitate. He called on his self-created advanced physical prowess. Facing such a formidable foe, he would use everything he had. He coalesced a great deal of chakra in his lower body and then unleashed it in a sudden, lightning-fast kick. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh! In an instant, a dragon-shaped tornado over 30 meters tall erupted. The chopping force shred the trees around him into stumps. Everything near the vortex was ripped apart, wood chips and yellow sand spraying everywhere. How exaggerated! He didn't use his full strength before, Shiranui Genma said, instinctively shifting his backside away from the field. Even watching the battle felt dangerous. How will Mu Yue respond? Metgai's eyes were fixed on the cyan tornado. He was keen to see what kind of physical prowess Mu Yue would use to counter the Leaf Dragon God. Ebisu, mellowed by the earlier fight, no longer assumed Mu Yue was weaker than Teacher Chen. Obito watched the destructive cyan dragon with wide eyes. Is this physical prowess or ninjutsu? It looks so cool, he blurted. He wanted to ask Mu Yue to teach it to him. Mu Yue considered the move carefully. He recognized the Leaf Dragon God's weakness. Because it was essentially a tornado, its center, the eye, was vulnerable. If you could get into the eye, you could break it. He decided to meet Teacher Chen head-on with physical prowess. This wasn't a life-or-death contest. There was no need to win with minimal effort. 8 gates, Gate of Life, open. Mu Yue opened the third of the 8 gates, greatly enhancing his body. He planned to use the Noon Tiger he had at his disposal to counter the Leaf Dragon God. With his current strength, though, he still lacked the condition to fully activate Noon Tiger. He couldn't reach its full power without opening 3 more gates. Still, he would weaken the technique and force a direct clash. He condensed a massive chakra in his fist and delivered a barrage of impossibly fast, straight punches into the air. The air compressed under the speed and pressure of those blows. Noon Tiger. On Mu Yue's final strike, the compressed air exploded outward and a huge translucent tiger formed, an air cannon roaring straight toward the tornado. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh! The moment the tiger appeared, a colossal shockwave spread. Nearby trees crashed down, leaves on farther trees rustled violently. Unprepared, Ebisu was blown off his feet. Metkai immediately assumed rock breathing to steady himself and hauled Ebisu to safety. Shiranui Genma grabbed a nearby tree and held on. Obito went into a full flame-breathing concentration to resist the force. What kind of terrifying move is that? Genma complained. The dragon made a splash when it came out, but this one could blow us away. Metkai stared at Mu Yue, stunned. The aftershock alone carried killing power. Obito, impressed, thought the tiger might be even stronger than the dragon. Flashier, yes, but more devastating. Both sides watched the sky where dragon and tiger raced toward one another. Oh, such pure power! Teacher Chen, caught inside his tornado, felt the Noon Tiger's pressure bearing down. Even from the sidelines, Obito and the others could sense it. Facing that force directly, Teacher Chen's excitement surged. This was a level of physical prowess he had rarely encountered. The tiger air cannon slammed into the cyan dragon. Roar! The dragon's cutting winds tore into the tiger's jaws sank into the dragon. The collision detonated across the field. Boom, boom, boom. The earth split under the strain. Dust and shockwaves tore out in all directions, felling trees and scattering debris. When the din cleared, both spirit forms were full of gaps and finally dissipated together. From the wreckage, a disheveled Teacher Chen staggered out. Mu Yue canceled the 8 gates and the rock breathing mark, walked forward, and smiled. Senior, you truly are Konoha's strongest physical prowess ninja. Even with what I used, I could only barely offset your Leaf Dragon God. Mu Yue had no intention of continuing. In that state, combining his breathing technique and the 8 gates would be overwhelming. Paired with Transparent World, it could become a dimensional reduction attack. He'd stopped when he felt it was enough. He wasn't trying to beat Teacher Chen. Teacher Chen blinked, then understood. Mu Yue sounded relaxed, but his words made it seem as if Mu Yue had just scraped by. He laughed. Good with words, but don't sell yourself short. Your physical prowess is no weaker than mine. He couldn't figure out exactly how Mu Yue had blocked his Leaf Dragon God so directly, but he was sure he himself had come up short. If the clash had been a real fight, The moment the dragon broke, Mu Yue could have rushed in and struck, and he'd have had difficulty defending. I took a short path. My true physical prowess is far from yours, senior, Mu Yue answered with a gentle smile. He'd leaned wholly on breathing technique and the gates to outpower Teacher Chen. Youngsters like you are impressive, Teacher Chen sighed. I wonder how strong you'll be when you're my age. When you teach Guy and he reaches my age, he might be the same, Mu Yue said lightly. He'd only used the rock breathing mark plus the third gate. If Metkai trained another 9 or 10 years, alongside instructors like Teacher Chen and Mu Yue, his potential was frightening. That's possible, Teacher Chen mused. Metkai was only 9 and already formidable. With time and discipline, his future was boundless. Obito, who'd been watching the two chat, hurried over. You're not fighting anymore? Who won? He asked, baffled. Mu Yue flicked his hand like a blade, and a transparent burst of energy tapped Obito's forehead with precision. That's what a master exchange is, knowing when to stop. It doesn't have to end with a winner. Teacher Chen narrowed his eyes, realizing there was more to Mu Yue's techniques than plain physical prowess, something he hadn't used openly during the fight. Obito rubbed his head and, curious again, asked Mu Yue, Can you do that dragon move? The big dragon? The leaf dragon god? Mu Yue smiled. That's Senior Chen's creation. It's not something I know how to do. He had thought about claiming he'd learned it, but it would have been a slight to Teacher Chen. Besides, Metkai could learn from Teacher Chen directly, and Mu Yue had no particular need for the leaf dragon god himself. Teacher Chen straightened, patting his clothes. You want to learn it? Give it to your teacher. I'll teach him. Obito grinned and gave Teacher Chen a thumbs up. I thought you were a weary old man, but you're the most spirited uncle ever. Teacher Chen chuckled and shook his head, the smile of a man still clearly enjoying the fight and the company of strong young shinobi. 283. Basic breathing techniques. Teacher Chen offering to teach Mu Yue the leaf dragon god was an offer he couldn't refuse. Picking up another advanced body technique was a good thing. Mu Yue didn't take it for free, though. He made it a straight body technique exchange, handing Teacher Chen a scroll that recorded the tile splitter cultivation method. On paper, it looked like a slight loss. He was trading a technique Teacher Chen didn't know for one he already did, but Mu Yue didn't mind. Tile splitter wasn't vital to him. It proved his skill as a ninja who could create a strong body technique, and importantly, it was a way to smooth things over and broaden his circle of allies. What was that body technique you used just now? Metkai asked as he came over, visibly excited. Watching the leaf dragon god clash with the tiger-shaped air cannon had thrilled him. Both combatants were his teachers, and now he might learn both techniques. Noon Tiger, Mu Yue replied with a smile. Once your physical strength reaches the required level, I'll teach it to you. Noon Tiger demanded enormous physical power, more even than the leaf dragon god. It was a textbook brute force body technique. My youth is already impatient to burn even more intensely. Metkai cheered, unable to contain his enthusiasm. Shiranui Genma and Ebisu watched with envy. Good teachers really were a blessing when it came to advanced body techniques. That technique isn't for just anyone, Teacher Chen said, noticing the looks on their faces. As a body technique master, he could see the principles behind Noon Tiger. Ordinary ninja simply couldn't use it. If you diligently cultivate and master my leaf dragon god first, that alone will set you on a solid path. Start training at once, Teacher Chen added. After watching that fight, you should have a clear idea of how far you still are from being true ninja. Yes, Metkai and the others answered in unison, then bid Mu Yue farewell and began their training. All right, we won't keep you, Mu Yue said with a gentle smile. Obito waved at Teacher Chen, all excitement. He'd been delighted. He'd seen a body technique Mu Yue hadn't used before and had gotten to latch on to something cool and powerful looking. What energetic uncle? Call me Teacher Chen or Uncle Chen. Don't hand me such strange nicknames, Teacher Chen grumbled. Got it, energetic uncle, Obito chuckled. Mu Yue gave Obito a light tap on the head, smiled apologetically, and led him back to the south border forest to continue training. Back at the south border forest, Obito scanned for Kakashi so he could boast about Mu Yue's battle. He found Rin Nohara sitting and chatting with Kakashi, training nearby, and ran straight over. Rin, you're training here too? How have you been these last few days? Obito asked, genuinely concerned. For Rin, this was her first time facing such danger outside the village. Obito worried it might have shaken her. Thanks for asking, Obito. I'm okay, Rin replied with a smile. I've mostly been studying medical ninjutsu theory at home. She admitted the mission had been alarming, but it hadn't damaged her composure. She'd spent 2.5 days studying to improve herself. You'll be fine then. You won't believe it. I followed Teacher Mu Yue to Teacher Chen and watched them fight. It was so intense. Obito launched into a vivid retelling. When he described the Leaf Dragon God and Noon Tiger clashing, he even acted out being blown backward by the force to make it more dramatic. Teacher Chen's technique was like a giant azure dragon, and Teacher Mu Yue's Noon Tiger was a huge white tiger. Their aftershocks could throw people away. Rin clapped, smiling. That truly does sound spectacular. Ha ha ha! Maybe I've got a talent for acting. Obito beamed, pleased by her praise. Teacher Chen really is Konoha's strongest body technique ninja. He saw potential in my body at a glance and is going to teach me the Leaf Dragon God. He shot Kakashi a triumphant look. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. I think Rin meant the Phi. Got was spectacular, not your narration and performance. Kakashi, what are you talking about? The fight was spectacular, and my performance wasn't bad either, right? Obito protested. He was sure Kakashi was just jealous. Yes, Obito's performance was heartfelt and earnest, Rin said gently, giving him the confirmation he wanted. See? It must be your jealous, twisted heart affecting your judgment, Kakashi. Kakashi only smiled and let it go. He had work to do. He resumed his breathing technique training, entering the constant state. Seeing him train, Obito couldn't sit still either, and immediately began his own breathing technique practice. Rin was about to return to her medical studies when Mu Yue, having finished guiding Shisui, walked over to her. Rin, starting today you'll begin training water-release chakra nature transformation and chakra form transformation, he said. Rin's innate chakra nature was water. She wasn't the prodigy Metkai was, but she was suited for water release. She simply hadn't prioritized it before. Mu Yue didn't teach her earlier because she had the least chakra among his disciples, and as a medical ninja, she needed to reserve chakra for medical techniques. Her monster strength also consumed significant chakra. Back then, improving her body and body technique experience or refining her chakra control for medical ninjutsu had been the smarter path. Now things had shifted. Mu Yue was developing water breathing himself, and Rin's chakra reserve had begun to increase with age and training. He estimated water breathing would still take about a year to fully develop, but waiting that long to start water release would make it difficult for her to use it effectively in combat. To help Rin keep up with Obito and the others, Mu Yue tried another approach. He used his experience developing water breathing to create a basic breathing technique. It had no special effects, only a breathing-driven enhancement to physical capability, similar in effect to flame breathing. He planned to test it for a few days and pass it to Rin, making future water-breathing development faster. Rin nodded obediently, though she wondered how she was supposed to practice chakra nature transformation. Mu Yue hadn't explained the practical steps yet. He took her to the river to begin. Using water release, where water is abundant, is simpler and consumes less chakra. Mu Yue had Rin cup water from the river and focus on what it felt like. Water wasn't like fire. It didn't burn when touched, which made the sensations easier to describe. Damp, flowing, liquid, Rin said after a moment. Mu Yue nodded. When you perform chakra nature transformation, direct your movements toward that impression, toward what you feel. He demonstrated. On the calm river surface, a pillar of water rose under his control. He showed how to borrow water from the surroundings and how to form water using his own chakra. Rin watched intently, then pictured herself in Mu Yue's place, performing the transformation. Water was her elemental attribute. Combined with Mu Yue's proficiency and teaching boost, she trained seriously and made satisfying progress. Mu Yue also had her practice chakra form transformation. Many advanced water-release jutsu require precise chakra form. By evening, Mu Yue called all his disciples back for dinner. This life is too blissful, Obito said, grinning after finishing his meal. Training was exhausting, but eating Mu Yue's cooking afterward felt like a reward for the soul. Eat more, everyone. Rest well tonight. Tomorrow, everyone except Rin will have special training, Mu Yue said with a gentle smile. Do we have to do problems? Obito asked with mock solemnity, the one question on his mind. If you complete them perfectly, no, Mu Yue replied, smiling. Tomorrow would be Obito's last day off. It was time to apply some pressure. The thought of Mu Yue's problem-solving training returned Obito's anxiety, but he turned it into appetite and ate even more enthusiastically. This time, Kakashi has to participate too. It's time he felt my pain, Obito added, a small consolation as he finished his meal. This time, it's still hit training. Do your best to strike the shadow clone and win, Mu Yue said as he formed 3 shadow clones. Because Kakashi was taking part for the first time, Mu Yue re-explained the punishment for failing the special training. If you didn't land a hit on a shadow clone within 10 minutes, you'd receive 50 of his problems to solve. Kakashi's first reaction was to hurry. If this was a graded special training, he wanted a good score, and he definitely didn't want to go home with an avalanche of problems. Mu Yue's exercises weren't trivial, a few were invigorating, but too many would overwhelm him. Around 30 problems per session was his limit, then they could be spread over a week and done in small portions. 50 problems, on the other hand, was a different matter. Start. Lightning breathing. Total concentration breathing. Kakashi shifted his breathing into a precise rhythm, compressing his chakra to the absolute edge of his control. The moment Mu Yue shouted, Kakashi drew his white fang short sword and lunged at the nearest shadow clone. This was training, not a real fight. Conserving chakra wasn't a concern in a 10-minute exercise. He poured a great deal of chakra into lightning release nature transformation and propelled it through his lower body. His speed spiked. In a flash, he reached the clone. A streak of white light slammed past, and the tree beside the clone was sheared in half, but the shadow clone itself had already slipped back and evaded unharmed. It can react at this speed? A normal full-power attack won't finish this quickly, Kakashi thought. Because it was training, the clone didn't counterattack, so Kakashi had pushed his own speed to the limit, and still came up just a breath short. If full power couldn't do it, something else would be needed. He tested a few more times. No matter how he pushed himself, he always ended up a hair away. After 3 minutes of probing, he changed tactics. He tossed a smoke bomb to hide his movements. A shadow clone drew attention while his real body slipped underground. After the clone engaged in a short melee, Kakashi revealed himself and unleashed purple lightning. To be sure of a hit, he split the purple lightning into more than a dozen bolts aimed at Mu Yue's clone. Mu Yue calmly put some distance between him and the clone, clasped his hands, and spat out a torrent of flames that cut through and blocked every bolt. Ordinary tricks aren't enough. Kakashi stopped and quickly ran through the fight in his head, looking for more data. From the way Mu Yue moved, Kakashi concluded Mu Yue had known his real body was shadowed from the start. The motions were too smooth otherwise. After 9 minutes, Kakashi still hadn't landed a single blow. Well, finishing early is out of the question, he thought. 1 minute wouldn't be enough to organize the decisive strategy he needed. But he hadn't wasted the 9 minutes. He'd been gathering intel. So far, he'd learned that the shadow clone was just a little faster than he was. Its ninjutsu was decidedly stronger, and in pure ninjutsu exchanges, it was impossible to match. Also, if Kakashi avoided relying on ninjutsu, the shadow clone didn't use it either, information that supported the other points. If the clone used its full ninjutsu freely, even doubling their power wouldn't get a hit. After 10 minutes, Mu Yue announced the result. No one hit a shadow clone within 10 minutes. All 3 of you get 50 problems. 50 problems again. At the thought of tonight's homework, Obito's eyes dimmed. Shisui took a few shallow breaths. He had a plan too, but it hadn't worked. The clone was faster than the last one. Mu Yue smiled and added, "Try your best on the problems. This time there's no deadline. Come to me tonight if you need help." He had reset the shadow clone's strength. Unless his students made breakthroughs or devised better combat plans during training, the exercise would simply run out the clock. Most of the students were now graduates, though, so Mu Yue removed the time limit and let them finish at their own pace. The real value, he believed, was in the thinking the problems forced and the explanations he would give afterward. Obito's lifeless stare brightened. No time limit meant no more awful cliffhangers. Even though installments had been an easy way out, the extra problems themselves were the truly terrifying thing. That afternoon, Mu Yue announced a big feast to celebrate the students' last day of rest. He bought many ingredients and began preparations, only to find unexpected guests arrive that evening. "Haha, this place is lively. Looks like we timed it perfectly," Jiraiya boomed as he and Minato walked into Mu Yue's home. The war with Iwagakure had quieted. It wasn't a total ceasefire, but there were no more major battles, so Jiraiya had returned to Konoha to rest. "Minato-sensei, Toad Uncle, why are you here?" Obito greeted them. "What Toad Uncle? I am the Toad Sage," Jiraiya corrected with a grin. Cough. Toad Sage is the secret title. The more famous one is one of the three Sannin. I am Jiraiya, the most handsome white-haired man among the three Sannin. There were a couple of kids present whom he didn't know, so he introduced himself grandly. "Are you really the famous Jiraiya-sama, just like Lady Tsunade?" Rin asked, eyes wide. The three Sannin were household names in Konoha, even among recent graduates. "That's right, the legendary Jiraiya-sama." He puffed his chest and struck a proud pose. Minato rubbed his forehead with a fond, slightly embarrassed smile as Jiraiya preened in front of the children. Shisui's expression grew odd. These Sannin didn't look particularly reliable. "You came at a good time," Mu Yue chuckled. "I was just setting up a lavish meal." Jiraiya's eyes lit up at the word feast. It was the best thing he'd heard in days. Minato headed straight to the kitchen to help. Jiraiya parked himself in the living room and launched into stories about his travels across the ninja world. "Toad Uncle, you really have that much time? You travel to so many countries?" Obito was intrigued. He'd only ever visited a few nearby places and never stayed long. "I'm not traveling just for fun. I have very important matters. Concerns about the fate of the entire ninja world," Jiraiya said, raising an eyebrow. He'd been searching for the child of prophecy that the great Toad Sage had foreshown. Once the war wound down, he'd resume that search. "The fate of the entire ninja world?" Obito eyed him skeptically. It sounded exaggerated. "You wouldn't understand even if I explained. Anyway, a fool like you who can't even say names properly certainly isn't the child of prophecy," Jiraiya said, then laughed. Among his former pupils, Nagato matched the prophecy best. He possessed the legendary Rinnegan. Minato was his second pick. His talent was undeniable. "I'm not a fool. The elders of my Uchiha clan say I'm a genius," Obito protested. With Rin right there, he couldn't let the label stand. "It said only fools get anxious and try to explain themselves," Jiraiya replied with a grin. Obito opened his mouth, then shut it. Jiraiya's teasing left him hesitant. The awkward, stifled expression brought a smile to Jiraiya's face. Kakashi watched silently as Jiraiya toyed with Obito. He mentally noted the tactic for possible later use. What else could he think? Jiraiya's image in his head crumbled a little more. "Jiraiya-sama, could you tell us something about Lady Tsunade?" Rin asked, expectant. Jiraiya considered mentioning Tsunade's gambling habit and her tendency to run when the bill came due, but looking at Rin's eager face, he chose to focus on the positive instead. "At the least, she's brilliant and strong," he said, smiling. "Here's the chicken soup." Mu Yue carried a large pot to the table. One dish after another followed, most drawn from the great cuisines of his previous life, with a few regional touches from the Hokage world. The steaming plates were set down one by one, each aroma more tempting than the last. Conversation fell away. Everyone watched the food hungrily. When Mu Yue set down the final dish, a war without smoke began. After dinner, Obito and the other students headed home. Jiraiya, clearly not finished partying, bought a bottle of sake, and the three of them, Jiraiya, Mu Yue, and Minato, stayed up eating, drinking, and talking. As usual, Jiraiya did most of the talking. Mu Yue and Minato mostly listened, only occasionally launching small topics. "Mimicking the tailed beast ball is even harder than I thought," Minato said, steering the conversation toward his ninjutsu research in hopes of getting ideas from Mu Yue and Jiraiya. "To develop something like a tailed beast ball isn't simple," Jiraiya agreed, finishing the sake in his cup and stroking his chin. "A large part of what makes a Jinchuriki intimidating is the tailed beast ball. Its destructive power is too great for even someone like Jiraiya to withstand directly. Dodging is often his only option." I'm trying to form it as a chakra ball, copying the shape of the tailed beast ball, but it's unstable. The chakra ball can't even break a large tree right now, Minato explained, detailing the problems he'd run into. If it's unstable, try practicing with a solid sphere, something like a rubber ball, Mu Yue suggested after a moment's thought. Minato's eyes lit up. Mu Yue's idea was excellent. Using a solid object to help with practice, good idea, he said gratefully. After talking about the Rasengan, Mu Yue brought up the plan he'd been thinking over. It still feels wrong to put a sealing technique on a single chakra point to store chakra. I've thought about it more. If the seal could cover more meridians and points, it might work. You haven't given up on that bold idea? Jiraiya exclaimed. Theoretically it might, but you'd need incredibly precise chakra control and a very strong background in medical ninjutsu. He didn't sound optimistic. Developing something that manipulates meridians and points carries huge risks and could easily backfire. But if it succeeded, the payoff would be tremendous, almost like gaining a lot of chakra from nowhere. I'm confident in my chakra precision, but I don't know much medical ninjutsu yet. I've only just mastered the mystical palm technique. It's still theoretical, Mu Yue admitted. Hearing that Mu Yue had already started learning medical ninjutsu made Jiraiya rein in his advice. Mu Yue was careful and wouldn't act without confidence. Minato grew somewhat admiring. Mu Yue had really applied himself, not only researching sealing techniques, but also beginning medical ninjutsu study. Minato felt a bit lax by comparison. Jiraiya-sama, you and Lady Tsunade are both Sannin. Could you introduce me? I'd like to ask her about medical ninjutsu, Mu Yue said. He'd considered approaching Tsunade before, but hadn't been ready. Now, with a reputation in Konoha and his medical ninjutsu study originating at the ninjutsu pavilion, he felt it was the right time. Tsunade's medical ninjutsu is powerful. She'd definitely help your studies. But she's not an easy person to talk to, Jiraiya said, thinking back on their years as teammates. He and Tsunade had been through too much together for him not to know her temper. I can take you to her, but I can't promise she'll teach you. If I were wounded or ill, she'd treat me. She has medical ethics, Jiraiya continued. But whether she'll take you on as a student is her decision. That's fine. If you can introduce us, I'll speak with her myself, Mu Yue replied, smiling and raising his cup in thanks. Having Jiraiya make the introduction was better than approaching her cold. Jiraiya laughed and clapped Mu Yue on the shoulder. You should be fine. You're only a little less handsome than me, and your cooking skills are incredible. If you bribe her with a meal, she might agree. She likes to drink and eat tender chicken at the same time, Minato added. Mu Yue filed away the detail about Tsunade's preference for tender chicken. After they'd eaten and drunk their fill, Minato helped the slightly tipsy Jiraiya home. Mu Yue stayed up late studying sealing technique until 11:30, then washed up and went to bed. The next morning, Mu Yue sent out a shadow clone to handle school matters. The Ninja Academy was about to start, and there were things that needed attention, and prepared to go teach his students in the south border forest. Just as he finished breakfast, a ninja knocked and announced, "Please proceed to the Hokage's office. The third Hokage has a matter for you." Mu Yue nodded, left the shadow clone behind, and went to the Hokage building. At the door he knocked and heard Hiruzen Sarutobi's voice. "Come in." Inside, Hiruzen sat with another ninja Mu Yue didn't recognize. "Third Hokage-sama," Mu Yue greeted respectfully, smiling briefly at the unfamiliar ninja as he approached the desk. "Is there a mission?" Mu Yue asked. "No," Hiruzen said with a chuckle. "You've been promoted. Because of your performance at the academy and your battlefield merits, you're qualified for promotion to Jonin." He handed Mu Yue a new ninja certificate. It now read simply Jonin instead of Special Jonin. "Thank you, third Hokage-sama," Mu Yue said. He looked pleased and grateful, as if Hiruzen had done him a great favor. Inside, though, he felt no real emotional stir. The promotion was expected. He'd shown strong power, made contributions in battle, and done well at the academy. In wartime, promotion standards loosened, so moving up to Jonin made sense. If anything, it had taken a little longer than he'd expected. Hiruzen was probably waiting to promote a group of deserving ninja at once. Mu Yue glanced at the other ninja in the room and saw the same certificate. He'd been promoted as well. Hiruzen smiled. You earned this with your own strength and merits. It's the reward for protecting Konoha. Although the rank changed, Mu Yue's position at the Ninja Academy didn't. He still had two people above him, the class leader of the teachers, Shimono Hisanobu, and Principal Hiruzen Sarutobi. The class leader was a veteran jonin who'd been at the academy a long time. He couldn't be removed without cause. And Hiruzen's position as principal was, of course, untouchable for now. Still, the promotion brought tangible benefits. Mu Yue received 2 additional opportunities to select ninjutsu from the ninjutsu pavilion. After leaving the Hokage building, Mu Yue trained in the south border forest until noon, then returned to his home in the main district. Jiraiya had promised to take him to see Tsunade at noon, and that sort of visit couldn't be handled by a shadow clone. Every time I eat it, I never get tired of it, Jiraiya sighed contentedly after lunch. Don't mention her brother or her lover around her, Jiraiya warned, thinking of delicate subjects. I won't, Mu Yue nodded. Then Jiraiya led him straight to Tsunade's place. At this hour, she's probably just waking up. If she's not home, we'll have to check the nearby gambling dens, Jiraiya said. Tsunade didn't always stay at home. After the deaths of her brother and lover, she'd lost interest in many village affairs. If it hadn't been for the war, she might not even be in Konoha. They were lucky. As soon as they entered the yard, they saw Tsunade and Shizune sitting on the veranda under the eaves. Jiraiya, why are you here? If you're spying, I'll kill you, Tsunade snapped, folding her arms. Ha, that's the impression you have of me? But now isn't the time for research, Jiraiya laughed loudly, unfazed. Shizune looked on, expression unrateable, as Mu Yue prepared himself to speak with Tsunade. 286, 100,000 2 hours of Tsunade. Teacher Mu Yue, Shizune said, surprised to see him, and greeted him politely. She had graduated this year, had taken part in Mu Yue's special training, and had studied under him for a while. She liked him. Mu Yue smiled gently and inclined his head. Tsunade's eyes narrowed. At first glance, she'd assumed the blonde man was Minato Namikaze. Minato often followed Jiraiya, and this fellow's hair and calm smile were similar, so she hadn't paid much attention. On a second look, she realized he wasn't Minato at all, but someone she didn't know. Shizune, you know him? Tsunade asked. Yes, he's Mu Yue. He taught me for a while. He's a very capable instructor, Shizune replied softly. So he's just a teacher from the Ninja Academy? Tsunade mused. Since Shizune had been her student, the newcomer must be an academy instructor. Don't underestimate Mu Yue, Jiraiya cut in. Even though he's an academy teacher, he's no weakling. He beat an explosion-release hunter and helped repel a Jinchuriki. He rattled off Mu Yue's most impressive deeds in a tone that made them sound like passing trivia. I never said academy teachers are weak, Tsunade said, rubbing her mouth as if she hadn't slept. Yesterday was a blur of food and drink. So what are you doing here today? Mu Yue has been studying medical ninjutsu recently and ran into some difficulties, so he came to seek your guidance, Jiraiya said. Mu Yue had offered to speak for himself, but Jiraiya figured an old friend should introduce him. Ask me about medical ninjutsu? Tsunade said flatly. Then go home. I don't have the time or interest to teach medical ninjutsu. Teaching wasn't her thing. Except for Shizune, she had no desire to take on pupils. Jiraiya winced at the blunt refusal. He'd expected some reluctance, but not such immediate dismissal. Lady Tsunade, I won't take up too much of your time, and I won't expect you to teach for free. I'll pay, Mu Yue said, his smile steady. The word pay piqued Tsunade's interest. Her taste for extravagance cost a lot. She could burn through millions of ryo in a single night. How much? She demanded, emphasizing that she was one of the Sannin and the strongest medical ninja in the world. Recently, she'd been short on funds. A quick payout would be welcome. Mu Yue surprised them. 100,000 ryo per hour, he offered. Normally there'd be haggling. Start low, let Tsunade counter, then settle. 100,000 per hour was a lot, enough that Mu Yue's small treasury wouldn't last long. But he had other plans. If everything went right, only a small initial outlay would be needed. 100,000 ryo an hour. Tsunade's eyes brightened. That was a hefty sum, roughly what a B-rank mission rewarded. I could do a few hours each day, save up in a few days, and be ready to gamble again. She grinned. All right, considering Shizune vouched for you, I'll reluctantly agree. Thank you, Lady Tsunade. Mu Yue said with the same courteous smile. Do you want to start now? If so, I'll start the timer. And remember, if you start, even if it's less than an hour, I'll still charge a full 100,000 ryo, Tsunade warned. Jiraiya stepped up and pulled Mu Yue aside. Sorry, Mu Yue. Tsunade's not usually this mercenary. She must have been broke lately, he explained sheepishly. It's fine. Lady Tsunade isn't my teacher, so paying her is reasonable, Mu Yue said. Still, Jiraiya felt guilty for bringing him here. He fished in his robe, produced 600,000 ryo, and offered it to Mu Yue. I didn't bring much. Take this first. Mu Yue shook his head politely. That's my responsibility. You don't need to pay for me. Seeing Mu Yue's resolve, Jiraiya patted his shoulder and let it go. They walked back to Tsunade together. Tsunade, it's been ages since the three of us had a drink. Want to go tonight? I can call Orochimaru, Jiraiya asked, smiling. Since the Second Shinobi World War, the three had rarely gathered. Jiraiya wandered the world, Tsunade left a trail of extravagant spending, and Orochimaru buried himself in forbidden jutsu research. Drinking? Sure, Tsunade replied without hesitation. She had limited teaching time, but plenty of time for a drinking session. Back to business, Tsunade looked Mu Yue over, her interest regained. In her eyes, he'd already become a walking sack of ryo. How many hours do you want to learn today? It's 12:30 now. Let's start with 6 hours, Mu Yue said after a moment's thought. 6 hours would get them through to dinner. He then took his own wallet out, counted out 600,000 ryo, and handed the notes to Tsunade. She glanced at them casually, satisfied. 100,000 ryo an hour was a very good rate. You've got some nerve. I like that. If you have questions, ask them quickly, Tsunade said, tossing the money to Shizune for safekeeping. Mu Yue's straightforwardness, paying up without bargaining, had earned him a sliver of favor from her. 287. Tsunade wants to show off. I want to develop a sealing technique that can store extra chakra in the body, but that involves a lot of chakra points. How can I set a seal inside the body without disrupting those points? Mu Yue asked. He was desperate to make himself a power bank, so he was studying sealing techniques with more dedication than he'd ever put into his civil service exams. Seals were on his mind every spare moment. He'd already fully mastered about half of the techniques he'd obtained, and the rest were more than half learned. Compared to the Jonin panels he'd seen in the sealing class, his proficiency and quality were better. What he lacked now was medical ninjutsu, to make steady progress and avoid blundering inside a living body. Huh? You're asking about medical ninjutsu? Tsunade replied, surprised at the direction of his question. Yes, it's going to involve a lot of medical knowledge, how to perform precise work inside the body, Mu Yue said calmly. He'd paid up front partly because he worried Tsunade might dismiss him as soon as she heard the first sentence. Now that she'd pocketed 600,000 ryo, she at least had to listen. Tsunade thought for a moment. Such a technique would indeed demand high-level medical ninjutsu. Why was she so certain? Because she knew of something similar. A sealing passed down from her grandmother, Uzumaki Mido, the yin seal, which could store chakra. Tsunade had never mastered it. The technique had serious flaws and was hard to learn. Still, it had potential, and she'd once toyed with improving it or devising complementary jutsu. That had been before her brother and lover died. Now she had little enthusiasm for ninja matters. Healing the living mattered. Bringing the dead back did not. Research became nothing more than a pastime, something to do when she was bored or had no money for gambling. That's true, but do you really understand how difficult what you're proposing is? Tsunade said coolly, trying to dissuade him. First, this will require an extremely high sealing proficiency. Working seals inside your own body can easily damage it. Chakra was needed to release jutsu, for taijutsu, even to cling to walls or walk on water. The amount and availability of chakra largely determined a ninja's strength. If storing extra chakra inside your own body were easy, everyone would already be doing it. It was a genuinely formidable challenge. Mu Yue adjusted his glasses, opened his palm, and performed the 5-element seal. 5 bright chakra lights appeared in his hand. 5-element seal, so smoothly. Tsunade's expression flickered with surprise. That was an advanced sealing technique. I'm confident in sealing. I've also learned the 4 symbols seal, Mu Yue added with a smile, dispersing his chakra. You've mastered 4 symbols? Tsunade's surprise deepened. That was an extremely powerful seal. Even she hadn't mastered it. In terms of sealing alone, Mu Yue ranked above her. What level's your medical ninjutsu at? She pressed. Mu Yue showed her his chakra scalpel and mystical palm technique. Tsunade's head hurt just looking at them. Mastering those 2 already marked him as a very competent medical ninja. She'd come prepared to teach basic concepts, but the truth was she needed to teach advanced work, far more than she'd expected. Such a hassle. Can't I just get Shizune to teach him? Tsunade flopped onto the wooden corridor, her lazy streak kicking in. There's no way that would work. How could I teach Mu Yue-sensei? Shizune protested, gently pushing at Tsunade. Lady Tsunade, you already accepted his payment. You can't go back on that. Mu Yue silently gave Shizune a thumbs up. Being a good teacher had its rewards. Shizune's insistence worked. Tsunade sat up and, after a moment of irritation, indulged herself by kneading Shizune's face. Lady Tsunade? Shizune whimpered, then looked at Tsunade with a helpless expression. You were born to be kneaded. How dare you lecture me? Tsunade said triumphantly, then sobered and began to answer Mu Yue's questions. Mu Yue had several things in his favor. He'd been brought by Jiraiya, Shizune liked him, and he'd paid in advance. Had any of those been missing, Tsunade might not have been so willing. He'd certainly found the right person, difficult to deal with, but unrivaled in medical ninjutsu skill. Over the next hour, Tsunade was blunt, sometimes sharp, in pointing out problems. How could you not know this? Or, even a pig knows that, she snapped. Mu Yue didn't mind. This was the tutor who could help him realize his power bank plan. Even if she was spewing daggers, he'd metaphorically activate his armed color hockey and endure the lecture. And Tsunade was very beautiful. Some rewards were not purely academic. Time flew. With Tsunade's detailed teaching and Mu Yue's questions, 5.5 hours slipped by, noon to dusk. Finally, almost done. I must have a good drink tonight. Tsunade sighed in relief. She'd never taught so long for Shizune. She decided she wouldn't earn more from Mu Yue. The next time, she'd chase him off. Lying down was better. If you're tired, Lady Tsunade, you can finish and rest now, Mu Yue said politely. You said that yourself. Tsunade agreed. Only a fool would turn down an offer like that. Mu Yue glanced at the sky, then asked, You must be tired and hungry after teaching. I happen to be a decent cook. May I make you something? Mu Yue-sensei is very considerate, Shizune breathed inwardly. Ending early and offering dinner showed he understood the exhaustion of focused teaching. Tsunade, always open to pleasant surprises, did ask warily, What do you mean by decent? A level I'm more confident in than my ceiling, Mu Yue replied with a smile. He'd proved before that his cooking could win over even the harshest critics. Intrigued, Tsunade allowed it. Mu Yue went out to buy groceries and fetch some pastries, then started cooking in Tsunade's kitchen. Mu Yue-sensei, let me wash the vegetables, Shizune offered. You're a good child, thank you. Mu Yue handed Shizune 3 wrapped pastries as a reward. Shizune sniffed their sweet aroma, puzzled at first. These are yours, Mu Yue said. Shizune tasted one after washing. Her eyes lit up. She'd never had anything so delicious. Which shop did you buy these from? She asked, thinking of her pocket money. They're not for sale, Mu Yue said. Why not? Because I made them. Shizune was stunned. She tucked the other 2 away to savor later, 1 a day. She wouldn't share sweets with Tsunade. In her memory, Tsunade didn't care for desserts anyway. When the dishes were ready, Mu Yue packed some into a bento and sent a shadow clone to deliver it to Minato, then brought the rest out. Tsunade sniffed the food before taking a seat. The dishes were unfamiliar, but aromatic and inviting. She took a slice of spicy stir-fried pork and ate it, instant astonishment, as if transported to another world. The heat hit her mouth hard, but she couldn't stop eating. Shizune, too, was completely absorbed. Tsunade reached for more with rice, only to find the 3 plates already empty. You made so little. Don't underestimate a ninja's appetite, she complained, still hungry. I figured you'd be going out drinking with Jiraiya and the others tonight, so I didn't make too much. I'd planned to test a new whole chicken dish, Mu Yue explained. Tsunade mentally cursed Jiraiya for poor timing. Couldn't he have invited her another night? I'll come for lessons again tomorrow and make more, Mu Yue added. Tsunade hesitated. She'd told herself she'd stop teaching this guy, but after tasting his food and hearing about a whole chicken dish, she wanted more. One more day, then. More teaching means more gambling money. She decided to teach Mu Yue another day, and then, after that lesson, tell him not to come again. All right, remember to make more and make it good, she warned. Mu Yue smiled. His plan had taken its first step. That evening, Jiraiya and Orochimaru came to Tsunade's house to invite her out for a drink. Jiraiya was puzzled. Tsunade looked at him with annoyance. Chapter 288. Tsunade Eats Chicken. At the izakaya, Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Orochimaru sat side by side. This is nostalgic. How long has it been since the three of us drank together like this? Jiraiya laughed and took a sip of sake. Tsunade raised her cup and remembered for a moment. Since the end of the Second Shinobi World War, I think. After the war, they had each gone their separate ways. Orochimaru picked at a side dish and asked, Jiraiya, after all this time, have you found that student who can change the ninja world? Jiraiya grinned. Haha, good question. I don't know. The Great Toad Sage's prophecy had been too vague. Jiraiya couldn't say whether any of the students he'd trained were truly a child of destiny. You don't know, and yet you say it with such confidence. You really haven't changed, Tsunade shot back. He's just making trouble for himself, Orochimaru said without surprise. He didn't believe an individual's power could reshape the entire ninja world. Not even someone like Senju Hashirama had been able to ensure a lasting peace. The world returned to its old ways after his death. Jiraiya bristled. If I'm making trouble for myself, then what about you? You want to learn all the ninjutsu in the world and live forever. That's impossible. No matter how much you research, human life won't be eternal. Orochimaru's eyes were cold. Living on in someone's heart is just comforting words children tell themselves. When a person dies, they die. Orochimaru knew fragility. He'd lost his parents when he was young, and during the war, already a high-ranking jonin, he'd seen many comrades fall under his command. The death that shaped him most, though, was his disciple Nawaki's. Nawaki had been Tsunade's younger brother and Orochimaru's student. Whereas Orochimaru was reserved and cold, Nawaki had been bright and eager. Orochimaru had enjoyed teaching him, and that made the loss worse. During a night mission, Nawaki had rushed after an enemy, fallen into an explosive tag trap, and died instantly before his teacher's eyes. From then on, Orochimaru had learned how fragile humans truly were. That fragility drove his obsession with mastering ninjutsu to make himself less vulnerable. Tsunade took a few heavy gulps of sake as those memories washed over her. You're getting colder and harsher every year, Jiraiya sighed. It's your ideas that are naive, Orochimaru replied, lifting his cup. One of you is an idiotic dreamer and the other's an outspoken fool. Tsunade, not to be outdone, fired back at both of them in turn. They drank, ate, and bickered late into the night. Despite all the teasing, the mood remained warm. Near the end, Jiraiya's cheeks were flushed. That was fun. Same time tomorrow? No. I have ninjutsu research tomorrow night. Orochimaru refused. Tsunade cut him off even more directly. No drinking for me either. If I hadn't come tonight, I would have eaten Mu Yue's chicken. Jiraiya stroked his chin. That's a serious loss. Mu Yue's cooking is something else. Mu Yue? Orochimaru's face registered interest, but not for the culinary reason. He remembered the Leaf newspaper and the report Danzo had fetched for Root the day the article came out. He'd assumed Mu Yue was a minor player, but the man had actually been an excellent jonin who'd made a difference in a tailed beast battle. Danzo had used his influence to get the full battle report and found that Hayate Mugetsu, Mu Yue, was adept at combination ninjutsu with impressive techniques. After glancing back at his own research, Orochimaru's interest faded. He wasn't working on the common 5 nature releases, but on ninjutsu with more unusual effects. By the time Tsunade woke the next day, it was already past noon. Hungry, she stuck her head out and called, Shizune, I'm starving. Anything to eat? I'm making it now, Lady Tsunade. Just a moment, Shizune answered. Tsunade washed up quickly. Passing the kitchen table, she caught a faint floral scent and found 2 wrapped packages there. Curious and hungry, she opened one and popped the pastry inside into her mouth. It's actually really good. Is this a new dessert? She tried the second, smiling as she chewed. Shizune arrived, carrying the rest of the meal, and froze when she noticed the opened packages. She'd hidden those pastries specifically to save them for later, One every 24 hours, she'd promised herself. She hadn't expected they'd be gone. Maybe they were identical packages and Lady Tsunade just ate a different kind of sweet. Shizune tried to tell herself, but when she examined the wrappers and found crumbs, her face went pale. "Shizune, what's wrong?" Tsunade asked. "The dessert, it's gone," Shizune said, a little hurt. "You don't even like sweets, Lady Tsunade." "Oh, those. They were surprisingly good. Where did you buy them?" "Give me money and I'll get you more," Tsunade said, suddenly self-conscious. "Teacher Mu Yue made those himself," Shizune replied, disappointed. Tsunade felt a pang of guilt. She didn't usually fuss over small things, but stealing a child's hoped-for treat did sting. "It's fine, Shizune. Eat what's left. When he comes, I'll ask him for some more." Tsunade tried to smooth things over. Shizune shook her head. It would be a bother. "Please, his questions are so complicated. 10,000 ryo an hour wouldn't even be enough. He can spare some dessert." Tsunade waved it off. At 12:30, Mu Yue arrived at Tsunade's house, this time on his own. "Lady Tsunade, today is 5 hours," he said, and handed over 500,000 ryo in banknotes. Tsunade tossed the money to Shizune, and the lesson began. Mu Yue found Tsunade a little more engaged today than yesterday. Yesterday she had drifted off whenever she could, but by the end of the 5 hours Mu Yue felt, as before, that he'd taught her a lot, and had learned a lot himself. True to his promise, Mu Yue cooked for them afterward. Tsunade, curious and with time to spare, dragged Shizune out to watch him prepare everything. She wanted to see if the dish he'd mentioned was as special as he'd claimed. "Why are you smearing mud on it?" Tsunade asked as Mu Yue squatted in the yard. "Won't that make it dirty? Will it taste good like that?" "It won't get dirty. The lotus leaves wrap it tightly. You'll see once you taste it." Mu Yue grinned. The chicken he was making for Tsunade was the famous beggar's chicken from his previous life, wrapped in lotus leaves, sealed in mud, and roasted with a unique, intoxicating aroma. While the main bird baked in a simple earth-release oven, Mu Yue prepared other dishes: tempura, sushi, stir-fries. The table looked overflowing and smelled heavenly, but Tsunade's eyes kept returning to that largest dish. She poured herself a cup of sake she'd saved specifically for this. "So it'll be good roasted in mud?" she asked, then tore off a chicken leg and bit in. Tender, juicy, rich flavor exploded in her mouth. Her eyes widened. She'd never tasted chicken like this. For a moment she went quiet, almost trance-like, as the flavors transported her. It felt as if she'd become a wild chicken roaming free in a forest, mind and body utterly relaxed. She didn't speak again until every dish on the table had been finished. Then she remembered Shizune. "Mu Yue, that dessert you made was really good. Could you give Shizune some? She loves sweets." "No problem. I'll bring some when I come to teach tomorrow," Mu Yue said with a smile. Tsunade fell silent. She'd been thinking of ending this brief teaching arrangement today, but the food had made her change her mind. "All right," she said finally. "I'll teach one more day, for Shizune, and not because the food was too delicious." 289. "Tsunade, teach me again." "Why isn't he here yet? Is he still not awake?" Tsunade glanced at the clock. The hour hand pointed to 12, and the minute hand had already passed the 30-minute mark. Mu Yue had arrived around this time the past 2 days. She expected the same today. "Teacher Mu Yue shouldn't be the type to sleep until noon, right?" Shizune murmured. Compared to Tsunade, Mu Yue seemed different, disciplined. "What's wrong with sleeping until noon? There's nothing to do anyway. What difference does it make what time you wake up?" Tsunade teased, sensing a jab in Shizune's words. She reached out and pinched Shizune's cheeks. "Mph." Shizune tried to protest that waking up at noon meant losing a third of the day, but Tsunade's kneading attack left her incoherent. Mu Yue didn't show up until 1 o'clock, so Tsunade decided to start teaching Shizune. "You're still working on the mystical palm technique, right?" she asked. Shizune nodded. At 2:30, Mu Yue arrived in the courtyard carrying a small box. "Lady Tsunade," he greeted with a gentle smile, setting the box down beside Tsunade and Shizune. Tsunade had just finished lecturing and was resting. She nodded and immediately opened the gift. Shizune's eyes lit up when she saw the pastries. Tsunade casually picked one up, tasted it, and nodded in approval. Even someone who didn't care for sweets as much as Tsunade had to admit, Mu Yue had a talent for food. "Eat. I brought them for you," Mu Yue said with a smile, offering them to Shizune. Shizune accepted gratefully and began to eat. She had wanted to save some for later, but Tsunade's ravenous habits quickly dashed that plan. If Shizune didn't eat them, Tsunade would. When they finished, Mu Yue handed Tsunade 400,000 ryo. Lady Tsunade will study for 4 hours today. Sorry for the trouble. Then let's begin. Tsunade dropped the money to Shizune without looking. She didn't ask why Mu Yue could only spare 4 hours. He might be busy. For the next 4 hours, the courtyard was filled with questioning and lecturing. Much of Tsunade's instruction was beyond Shizune's current level, but Shizune pretended to follow along and took notes on the parts she didn't understand. After the lesson, Mu Yue cooked dinner as usual and mentioned tomorrow's menu. Besides beggar's chicken, I know another very tasty way to cook chicken. It's a bit spicy. Tsunade swallowed the sentence she had been about to mutter. Mu Yue's beggar's chicken was the best chicken she had ever eaten. That afternoon, she and Shizune had tried to recreate it, and while their attempt was decent, it lacked the soul-soothing effect of Mu Yue's cooking. After dinner, Tsunade mentally vowed, I'm definitely going to tell him not to come after tomorrow. His presence interferes with my slacking. Teaching someone like Shizune was easy. Most questions were simple and allowed Tsunade to let her practice on her own. But Mu Yue asked questions that forced Tsunade to think and that threatened her leisurely pace. Mu Yue left while Shizune waved, reluctant to see him go. Goodbye, Teacher Mu Yue, she called. He smiled and departed. Tsunade clapped a hand over Shizune's head. Still staring? He's gone. A few meals and you like him that much? It's not about the food, Shizune protested, blushing and hiding beneath her hands. Teacher Mu Yue is a very good person. Not just me, everyone in 4th grade really likes him. The next day, Tsunade woke up a bit earlier, at 10. For her, waking early was useless. If anything, it just meant waiting longer for Mu Yue's cooking. Shizune, however, hoped Tsunade would get back to a sensible 8 o'clock wake-up time. If I just slept until 6:30 in the afternoon, Tsunade muttered, glancing at the clock. It was already 1, and Mu Yue still hadn't arrived. If you really slept that late, you'd probably miss Teacher Mu Yue's cooking. He'd leave disappointed if he saw you sleeping, Shizune replied. She believed Mu Yue stayed to cook as a reward for Tsunade's teaching. If Tsunade skipped the lesso, and it would be unearned to keep eating his food. Tsunade considered that and couldn't argue. After 3 days of 4 to 6 hours of teaching, today's delay went on even longer. Mu Yue didn't arrive until 4 in the afternoon. You slacker! You're late today. I won't be using my evening for teaching. Tsunade barked, annoyed. I apologize, Lady Tsunade. 2 hours today will be enough, Mu Yue said, handing over 200,000 ryo. He could earn money from missions, but with Ninja Academy starting and other commitments, his funds were lower today. Tsunade realized this could be part of his plan. Very well. The surge of irritation in Tsunade faded. 2 hours was reasonable. Arriving at 4 wasn't a problem. They taught for 2 hours, and it passed quickly. Tsunade didn't even feel tired. She still wanted to secretly keep learning, though, and brought Shizune to watch Mu Yue cook. This time his method seemed more elaborate, marinating, frying, then stir-frying. The final dish was named Spicy Chicken, and the mountain of red chilies made the name apt. Driven by the aroma, Tsunade grabbed a piece and ate. The heat spread through her like a warm hot spring. Her whole body relaxed. Mu Yue, if you opened a restaurant with cooking like this, you'd make more money than as a ninja, she said, half pleading. Cooking's just a hobby. I don't want it to be my job, Mu Yue replied simply. Tsunade fought the urge to tell him not to come anymore. She still wanted his beggar's chicken and spicy chicken. She decided, I'll teach him one last day tomorrow. Absolutely the last time. But Mu Yue spared her the decision. As he prepared to leave, he said, Lady Tsunade, I have something to take care of tomorrow. I probably won't be able to come. You don't have to wait in the afternoon. Who do you think I am? I'm Tsunade, one of the Sannin. How could I be waiting at home for you? I'm just here to teach Shizune, Tsunade huffed. Thank you for your teaching today, Lady Tsunade, Mu Yue said with a gentle smile and bade them farewell. It's a pity. We won't get his cooking tomorrow, Shizune said with disappointment. What's there to lament? Tsunade said coolly. Tomorrow I'll take you to a high-class restaurant and we'll use his money. She kept her word. At noon the next day, she took Shizune to an upscale Konoha restaurant and ordered the most expensive items. Tsunade complained as she sampled the dishes. I don't know how they can charge this much. None of this tastes as good as what an amateur like Mu Yue makes. Shizune, sincere and a bit wistful, thought Mu Yue's cooking was simply on another level. By evening, Tsunade still held a sliver of hope that Mu Yue might finish his errand early and show up. He had seemed so diligent these past days, always seizing chances to improve. But as the clock slid to 7, there was no sign of him. The attitude of young ninja these days is terrible. They don't seize chances to improve, Tsunade grumbled, annoyed with the younger generation. Lady Tsunade, Teacher Mu Yue just had something to do. It doesn't mean all the young ninja are like that, Shizune offered weakly in his defense. Tsunade glared at her. Internal thoughts were not for the green to voice aloud. Time seemed to slow, and Tsunade found herself eagerly wishing for tomorrow to arrive. Chapter 290, Tsunade, Who Understands Everything. It was the 6th day since Tsunade met Mu Yue. As usual, she woke at noon. After finishing the meal Shizune had prepared, she glanced at the clock. The hour hand pointed to 12, and the minute hand was already halfway around. He was busy yesterday. Maybe he'll come at 12 today, like the first time, she thought. Tsunade sat on the wooden veranda beneath the eaves, finishing her meal and peering toward the courtyard gate, watching for a flash of gold. How lazy, she scolded herself. Learning shouldn't be put off. The more you procrastinate, the more it becomes a habit. She was sure that was why Mu Yue's arrival time had crept later each day. Lady Tsunade, you may be right. Why not start waking up early from now on? Lead by example and inspire Teacher Mu Yue, Shizune suggested, trying to fix her mentor's irregular routine. I don't need to study as much anymore. A bit more sleep is fine, Tsunade replied. Completely changing her mornings wasn't going to happen. By 2 in the afternoon, there was still no sign of Mu Yue. Maybe yesterday's business isn't finished yet, Tsunade mused. It was a reasonable explanation. Realizing she was stuck eating either restaurant food or Shizune's cooking again, she felt a little disappointed. The bright sky suddenly darkened. Heavy raindrops began to fall, quickly turning into a downpour, accompanied by lightning, thunder, and a howling wind. Damn weather. Quite sunny a moment ago, Tsunade grumbled as she herded Shizune inside. Neither the battle-hardened Tsunade nor 9-year-old Shizune feared thunder, so they settled indoors and went about their tasks. Shizune pored over medical ninjutsu texts while Tsunade, restless as always, researched ways to improve a yin seal. After an hour, Tsunade teased Shizune twice just for the fun of it and felt a little better. A glance at the clock showed it was past 3. He must still be busy with yesterday's matters, she concluded. With this rain, he probably won't come today. If it were her, she thought, heavy rain only called for lying down, not working. That idea calmed her. Shizune, I have an important task for you, Tsunade said, wearing a suddenly serious expression. Shizune, unused to seeing her so solemn, straightened immediately. Lady Tsunade, please tell me. I will definitely complete it. Learn all of Mu Yue's recipes, exactly as he makes them. I refuse. Shizune, didn't you just say you'd definitely complete the task? This can't be important. Maybe Teacher Mu Yue won't teach me to cook, and even if he did, I might not be able to learn it. Shizune didn't believe Mu Yue's cooking could be easily copied. She knew her own cooking talent wasn't exceptional. How will you know if you don't try? Young people need to be brave. Just ask him. Tsunade patted her shoulder, approving. I have high hopes for you. Ahem. May I come in? Mu Yue's voice came from the gate just then. Shizune glanced at Tsunade, wanting to say, please come in, but this was Tsunade's house, not hers, so she held back. Go ahead, Tsunade said, suppressing a flash of surprise. Mu Yue stepped through the doorway, carrying an umbrella. The downpour had already left his pant legs and back damp. His hair was slightly wet. He set the umbrella outside, wrung the water from his clothes, changed his shoes, and entered. Thank you. Let me help you dry off, Shizune offered, producing a towel. Then I'll trouble you, Shizune. Mu Yue crouched gratefully to accept the towel. He never refused their kindness. In return for the pastries he brought and for the meals he'd shared, he liked to let Shizune help so she could feel useful. Did you finish what you were busy with yesterday? Tsunade asked, arms crossed. Yes, Mu Yue nodded. Why come out in such heavy rain? Tsunade continued. Because yesterday we wasted time on chores and couldn't study. Even if it were raining shuriken, I'd still come, Mu Yue said with a joking tone. If it really rained shuriken, you'd be torn apart before you'd go. Knee 3 steps, Tsunade laughed. Ninjas were strong, but a non-stop shower of shuriken would require defensive ninjutsu. The body couldn't simply stand it. All the more reason to learn medical ninjutsu from you, so I could heal while running, Mu Yue replied as he rose. Today I can study for 2 hours. He produced a stack of bills and handed Tsunade 200,000 ryo. Why not study a bit longer? It's raining. I don't want to go out. Extend the lesson. Tsunade considered, offering a small indulgence. She had been making a lot of guesses about Mu Yue over the past days. Because I'm almost out of money, Mu Yue said plainly. I'm a teacher at the ninja school and don't take many extra missions, so I don't have much on hand. After today, I won't be able to study again for a long time. I'll have to wait until the school pays me a month from when classes resume. Tsunade suddenly understood everything. That was why Mu Yue had come early and taught for 6 hours the first 2 days, and then started arriving later and staying for shorter sessions. The limit was his money. Mu Yue was charging 100,000 ryo per hour, a price comparable to a B-rank mission. Even if he was skilled, a ninja school teacher didn't earn based on strength as much as position and performance, so his pocket money was thin. A touch of guilt flickered through Tsunade. She hadn't considered money might be the reason for the change. She'd never worried about money herself. Losing it since childhood and cheerfully sending it off to the casino was nothing new to her. After today, I can't study with him for a month. That means I won't be able to eat that kind of food for a month. Tsunade fretted, ruffling her hair. It was easy to move from frugality to luxury, but hard to slide back. The thought of no Mu Yue cooked meals for a month was unbearably harsh to her. 291. Tsunade's decision. The 2 hours of lessons flew by, and by the time Lady Tsunade finished, the sky had just cleared. Mu Yue dutifully bought groceries and cooked, while Tsunade sat in the living room, staring off into space and turning over the same thought again and again. How can I make Mu Yue rich? She wondered, genuinely serious. If he had money, he could come for lessons every day. Opening a restaurant that sold expensive dishes would probably make him rich fast, she thought at one point, but Mu Yue had already refused that idea himself. Other schemes occurred to her in rapid succession, then were dismissed as soon as she thought them through. Either they would require Mu Yue to change professions, or Tsunade herself felt they were impractical. Shizune, what do you think? How can we make Mu Yue rich? You don't want him coming only once a month, do you? Tsunade asked, turning to the assistant beside her. She could think of nobody more reliable than Shizune. Why does teacher Mu Yue need to be rich? Shizune asked, clearly puzzled. Think about it. If he hasn't got money, he won't be able to come for lessons. I like that he comes and cooks for us, but he wouldn't do that unless there was something in it for him. If he's not learning, he won't come, Tsunade said, leaning back in her chair. But he already cooked for us without charging, Shizune pointed out after a moment's thought. Why don't you just not charge him? He cooked for you, didn't he? Tsunade scratched her head. She had thought of that, but the idea felt wrong. She was Tsunade, one of the legendary Sannin, the ninja world's acknowledged medical saint. Patients lined up for her from Konoha Hospital past the main district. If she taught someone just for food, wouldn't that make her seem indulgent? Or worse, like she was giving away her skills too cheaply. Lady Tsunade, you didn't charge me either for teaching me, Shizune added. You could propose other forms of compensation. Tsunade brightened at that and playfully ruffled Shizune's cheek. If Mu Yue were her disciple, she wouldn't need money. Exchanging teaching for other kinds of compensation would solve the problem completely. She still didn't know Mu Yue well enough to take him on as a disciple, though, so she decided exchanging for non-monetary compensation was the way to go for now. At dinner, as she eyed another unfamiliar chicken dish, Tsunade wondered how many chicken-based recipes Mu Yue had in his repertoire. What's this called? She asked. Saliva chicken, Mu Yue replied with a smile. That's a strange name, Tsunade muttered, then decisively picked up a piece coated in red oil and put it in her mouth. Her eyes lit up. She hadn't had Mu Yue's cooking for 5 meals, and with that first bite, the feeling came rushing back. 1 chicken, 3 completely different dishes, each equally delicious. Tsunade found herself admiring Mu Yue. If she had reached the pinnacle of medical ninjutsu, then he had reached an unmatched peak in cooking. She couldn't stop eating, only remembering near the end of the meal that she had neglected to settle the teaching arrangement with him. Ahem, Mu Yue, don't be in a hurry to leave today, Tsunade said quickly to keep him from heading straight home. Is there something you need, Lady Tsunade? Mu Yue asked, setting down his chopsticks with a hint of puzzlement. The agreed-upon teaching compensation is not something I change lightly, Tsunade began. But I see how eager you are to learn, and Shizune likes you. I'll allow a special arrangement. Instead of the usual 100,000 ryo per hour, you can offer other forms of compensation. Mu Yue's face showed surprise and gratitude. He understood why Tsunade would be flexible, though he didn't call her motives out. He played along. After a few moments of pretending to think deeply, Mu Yue answered, "Could the compensation be tutoring Shizune?" Tsunade blinked. Having Mu Yue teach Shizune as payment for his lessons felt a little indirect. Wasn't that putting a Sanin's teaching in the hands of a student? It sounded somewhat presumptuous. But Shizune, quietly supportive, spoke up. "Don't underestimate Teacher Mu Yue," she said softly. "He's an excellent teacher. He's the best at the ninja school. He can teach more than 300 students well." Tsunade thought back over the past few days. Mu Yue had been modest and unassuming. It was unlikely he'd suddenly become arrogant. Perhaps, she concluded, he'd simply offered the thing he was most proud of. All right, then it's settled, Tsunade decided. She would watch how he taught. If there were no major issues, and since Shizune genuinely liked him, the arrangement would stand. Mu Yue smiled and thanked her, and they discussed the future lesson schedule. Things were easier than he had expected. He had several backup plans for unforeseen problems, but none of them were needed. The sealing technique power bank plan was now back on track. From here on out, he only had to maintain his usual routine. With Tsunade's matter resolved, the ninja school officially began a brand new semester. In Class 2-1, students reunited after 2 weeks apart and swapped stories about their time off. "Kotetsu, did you get a chance to settle things with your cousin over the break?" Izumo asked curiously. Kotetsu Hagane had sworn to take on his older cousin and prove himself. "Don't ask," Kotetsu sighed. "That guy knew I wanted a real fight and refused to do it. He insisted on deciding everything with games. I was either reading or training the whole time. When would I have played games? I lost." "You could have refused his games and demanded a real match," Izumo said, puzzled. "He said if I won, he'd help me court Miho," Kotetsu admitted with regret. Izumo laughed and clapped Kotetsu on the shoulder. "Figures, that's so like you." Anko, unable to resist, chimed in. "The whole point was you spent the break reading and training." "Well, we are students, right? Studying is what we should do," Kotetsu answered with a self-satisfied expression. Izumo put on an exaggeratedly anguished face. "You give the impression you want everyone else to stand still while you secretly grind to surpass them, using the school as a battlefield and your classmates as enemies. How despicable." "Exactly." Anko jumped in. Delighted Izumo had voiced what she'd been thinking. Kotetsu, grinning, pointed out, "I saw you training too, Izumo." Anko, unbothered, planted herself between the two of them as usual. "If you believe any of these two stories, then sure, there's a ghost." Before she could act on her mock menace, the teacher arrived. Mu Yue pushed open the classroom door and stepped inside, studying the students with a gentle smile. "Good morning, Teacher Mutsuki." All the students called out to Mu Yue enthusiastically. Anko, the most outgoing of the class, even stood and waved at him. "Good morning, everyone." Mu Yue smiled and motioned with his eyes for Anko to sit. "Starting today, you're no longer first years, you're second years. Last school year, everyone worked very hard and got great results. Does anyone want to beat last year's achievements?" "Yes, yes, yes!" Anko answered, shouting, "Yes!" 3 times in a row, full of energy. "This year, I want to get into Group B for the summer special training," Kotetsu announced. "This year, I'll develop more practical ninjutsu," Izumo called out. I'll get at least one theory score above 95 this year. My combat score has to break 35 points. After Mu Yue finished speaking, the students quickly shouted out their goals for the semester, eyes bright and determined. Mu Yue nodded, clearly pleased with their enthusiasm. All right, let's begin class. The room quieted immediately. A few students whispered at first, then by the middle of the lesson almost no one spoke. Everyone listened carefully and practiced earnestly. Completed lecture, reward, water release, water formation wall. Mu Yue planned to spend this school year mastering ninjutsu, expanding his repertoire, and improving his proficiency with each skill. Ordinary shinobi tend to pick a single path and dig deep to build their system. Mu Yue didn't have to be so limited. With Mark mode of lightning breathing, he could become a high-speed fighter. With high proficiency nature transformation, he could unleash devastating combination ninjutsu. With rock breathing and the 8 gates, he was already a fearsome taijutsu master. There was little risk of overreaching, so Mu Yue wanted to make himself as versatile as possible. Ninjutsu and shinobi have counter-relationships. In the future, Roshi would be soloed by Kasame, and the current Minato couldn't take down a Jinchuriki by himself. That didn't automatically mean future Kasame would beat the present Minato. Kasame's Samahata counters tailed beasts, and his water release counters Roshi's lava release. Under that double disadvantage, Roshi lost. But against the current Minato, Mu Yue figured Kasame might not necessarily win. The younger Minato still possessed tremendous strength. To avoid being countered and to ensure he could counter others, Mu Yue wanted many high-proficiency techniques. He wasn't building just one system. He was building several, so he could be flexible in any matchup. That afternoon, during a large class, Mu Yue learned 2 wind-release ninjutsu. He was about to go find Tsunade when he noticed a Jonin meeting had been called at the Hokage building. He changed course and headed straight there. He arrived neither too early nor too late. A few Jonin were already gathered when he walked in. Jonin Mutsuki. One of the Jonin greeted him. Mu Yue smiled back. He recognized the man from a previous battlefield. Word about Mu Yue had spread. His growing reputation was earned by his strength, and several Jonin took the opportunity to strike up conversations with him, curious about the suddenly prominent Jonin powerhouse. What rotten timing. I was just about to get some rice balls, Teacher Chen muttered as he entered, then noticed Mu Yue and came over. How's your Leaf Dragon God training going? If you have any questions, tell me after the meeting. Coincidentally, I have some questions about your taijutsu too. I can perform it now, more or less. Zef Mu Yue said with a smile. There are a few things I'm unsure about. We can discuss them after the meeting. Directly showing total mastery would have been too startling. A gradual reveal was wiser. The surrounding Jonin listened and regarded Mu Yue with increased curiosity. Teacher Chen's taijutsu was well known in Konoha, and here he was, asking Mu Yue for advice. Heh, Mu Yue, how's your studying with Tsunade going? Don't make her angry. She can be terrifying. Jiraiya teased as he strode in with Mina, too. It's going very well, Mu Yue replied, smiling and nodding to Minato. How am I terrifying? Tsunade demanded, appearing a few steps behind Jiraiya and crossing her arms with an annoyed look. She punched Jiraiya often enough for it to be a running joke. She felt he had it coming. Ah, ha! What I mean is, Tsunade, you're a strict and effective teacher. Tell Mu Yue to study hard and don't disappoint your guidance, Jiraiya stammered, recovering with an awkward laugh. Tsunade wasn't looking to make trouble. She merely moved on and asked Mu Yue if he would come to train with her today. Mu Yue had planned to, but the meeting would take time. After thinking a moment, he told her he would come, but that he might be a little late. Across the room, Danzo, seated in one of the 4 reserved chairs with his usual grim mien, watched Mu Yue interacting with several Konoha-aligned Jonin and turned to Hiruzen Sarutobi. Hiruzen, when did you first discover his potential? He asked, voice hard. On his first day at the ninja school, Hiruzen said with a chuckle, stroking his small beard. If Danzo hadn't pushed Mu Yue into the school route, Hiruzen wouldn't know that such a talent had been under Danzo's command. The situation in the shinobi world is getting more chaotic. Nations are warring. I need powerful subordinates to gather intelligence. With his ability, he shouldn't be in the academy. He should return to Root to handle important missions, Danzo said in a low voice. You do know I am the Hokage, Hiruzen replied, his gaze sharpening, cutting off Danzo before he could press further. Danzo fell silent, but the restraint only lasted a moment. He was already composing his next maneuver. He didn't truly believe Hiruzen would hand Mu Yue over. Once such a talent was taken, how would it be given back? His remark had been as much a bargaining move as anything else. Danzo thought back to Mu Yue's sincere look at the root base before he left. He was convinced Mu Yue had the will of root running through him. Still, he wasn't going to give up. As soon as everyone's here, we'll begin the meeting, Hiruzen said, nodding as more jonin filtered into the room. The jonin meeting was about to start. Just today, a large number of Kumogakure shinobi launched an assault on our border from the land of hot water, Hiruzen Sarutobi said, his face grave. The younger jonin in the room stiffened. Although Kumo and Konoha had been at war for some time, there had been no major clashes between them recently. Most of the jonin, however, remained outwardly calm. If this were a true emergency, there would have been no meeting at all. Troops would already have been dispatched. The very fact they were sitting and talking meant the situation was still manageable. Fortunately, our frontline shinobi held firm and repelled the assault, stopping the Kumogakure force outside the Land of Fire, Hiruzen continued after a pause. Recon teams had detected the irregularities, and Minato had encountered that new AB combo his unit had been tracking. Hiruzen had reinforced the border with additional forces, preventing a catastrophe. But the situation is still severe. We need to send more shinobi to the border to foil Kumogakure's plans. One item on the agenda was appointing a commander to lead the reinforcement force. Hiruzen had already discussed the matter privately with Danzo and the others. He had wanted Jiraiya to take command, but Danzo had pushed for Orochimaru. Now Hiruzen glanced at Jiraiya, hoping he would volunteer. Leading a successful operation at the border would be the fastest way for any contender to increase their standing in Konoha. Jiraiya had already defeated an Iwagakure force once. Another victory would boost his prestige even more. Minato, how does it feel to have disciples? Watching them grow under your guidance must be rewarding, Jiraiya said, turning to Minato and deliberately avoiding Hiruzen's eyes. Minato smiled gently and nodded. Hiruzen sighed inwardly as Jiraiya looked away at exactly the right moment. The room was silent for 20 seconds before Orochimaru spoke. Third Hokage, I will go to the border to provide support. Because it was a formal meeting, Orochimaru did not address Hiruzen as teacher. Danzo immediately praised him, lauding his spirit of the will of fire. Seeing that Jiraiya showed no desire to push for the post, Hiruzen appointed Orochimaru to lead 1,000 shinobi to the border. Hiruzen had already denied one of Danzo's earlier requests, and with Jiraiya unenthusiastic, choosing Orochimaru was the easiest solution. The meeting didn't end there. Jonin meetings rarely focused on a single issue. The shinobi world is in chaos. The nations are at war. Under these circumstances, what should Konoha do? Hiruzen asked. Danzo answered immediately in his usual hawkish tone. We should join the war actively. Let the feudal lords and our clients see our strength. That will increase Konoha's prestige. Foreign commissions didn't appear out of nowhere. They came to the villages that performed well in war. The better Konoha played its hand in this conflict, the more commissions and influence it would gain afterward. Counterattack into the land of lightning and the land of earth, Danzo continued, and let them know how formidable Konoha is. Other members of the Hawk faction quickly echoed him. We can also send spies to the land of wind. With the third Kazekage gone and Tsunagakure fighting Kumo fiercely, they're more vulnerable than ever. Tsunade, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke. Instead of looking for more enemies to fight, we should train more medical nin. If every team had a medic, casualties would be much lower. She had meant to stay silent, go home and relax, but the hawkish talk of invading other lands was too much for her. Defending when invaded was one thing, suggesting attacks on a neutral nation was reckless. Hiruzen gave a small, polite shake of the head. We do need more medical nin, but having one medic per squad is very difficult, he said. His answer was a way of giving Tsunade face while rejecting the plan. A standard Konoha squad had 4 people, a captain and 3 members. If every squad required a medic, then out of 4,000 shinobi, 1,000 would have to be medics. Konoha couldn't expand its forces without limit. Training medics is more costly and takes longer than training regular shinobi. Reducing the number of regular fighters to raise the number of medics would weaken Konoha overall. Hiruzen couldn't justify that. I do have an idea, though, Mu Yue said after a moment of thought. People with good chakra control are usually more talented in medical ninjutsu. If we start cultivating that talent during the academy years, we can both screen and accelerate training. Establish a specialized medical ninjutsu class in the academy for students who want to become medics. Mu Yue had his own reasons for proposing this. In his experience, system rewards could be directed by the way he taught, and he wanted to test whether focusing training on medical ninjutsu would produce corresponding improvements. If successful, the idea could allow Konoha to more efficiently cultivate medics without sacrificing regular force numbers, and it might earn him some goodwill with Tsunade as well. Hiruzen regarded the proposal thoughtfully. It was a practical, manageable approach, far more realistic than Tsunade's immediate demand. Tsunade's surprise softened into approval as she considered it. The proposal was exactly the kind of long-term solution she had wanted. Mu Yue didn't press the matter further. This wasn't the sort of thing to debate at an emergency jonin meeting. The Academy and the Ministry of Education could handle the details themselves. The meeting soon returned to Konoha's broader strategy in the war. Afterward, Mu Yue discussed physical training briefly with teacher Chen, then went to Tsunade's home to cook dinner and study medical texts. With the basic breathing technique sufficiently tested, he began teaching it to Rin Nohara. Because his main body was occupied most of the time, it was mostly his shadow clone doing the teaching on weekdays. The same went for Shisui. There was no avoiding it. Chapter 294, 2.5 months of progress. After Hiruzen Sarutobi wrapped up war-related affairs, he gave Mu Yue's proposal for medical specialist students serious consideration and found it feasible. He sent a ninja to summon Mu Yue and Tsunade to the Hokage office. Tsunade was called not only because she knew medical ninjutsu well and could advise on training details, but also because Hiruzen wanted her to understand his reasoning. He wasn't rejecting her out of callousness. He thought some of her suggestions had been insufficiently practical. Mu Yue met Tsunade on the way to the Hokage office. "Lady Tsunade," he greeted first. "Are you heading to the Hokage building too?" Tsunade glanced toward the office. Since the Second Shinobi World War, she'd mostly stopped taking combat missions and rarely came by, so meeting Mu Yue, who had proposed the medical specialist student system, made her suspect why Hiruzen had summoned her. It's probably about that specialist program you suggested. How did you come up with the idea?" Tsunade asked, curious. She was impressed. If implemented, the plan would stabilize the development of medical nin talent and make it easier to identify those suited to medical ninjutsu. Mu Yue considered for a moment. "As a teacher at the Ninja Academy, I tend to look at things from the school's perspective. That led me to this approach. That's why no other academy teachers proposed it," Tsunade said with a smile. "You think about this area a lot. Since Senju Tobirama founded the Ninja Academy, its model had changed little. Mu Yue's ideas were refreshingly bold. When he went on to describe his larger plans, a ninja middle school to build on the basics of the academy by teaching more ninjutsu and taijutsu, and a ninja university where students could specialize deeply in a field, Tsunade watched him closely. She even caught herself seeing a hint of her great-uncle Tobirama in him. Mu Yue suggested that students who didn't enter university could still graduate and become ninja, while university students could take missions as well. The proposal was audacious compared to the current system. They reached the Hokage office entrance, and Tsunade pushed the door open. Mu Yue followed. "Third Hokage," Mu Yue greeted. Tsunade cut to the chase. "Get on with it." Hiruzen chuckled, removed his pipe, and said, "I think Mu Yue's idea for medical specialist students is very good. Tsunade, you're the most skilled in medical ninjutsu. Your input on their training will be important." "Mu Yue, explain your plan in detail," Hiruzen added. Mu Yue outlined it. "First, recruitment should target students in their second or third year. By then, they've got a foundation. I wouldn't start specialist classes in the first year. Most students come in with almost no knowledge. I favor third year under normal circumstances, but with the war and accelerated graduations, second year might be better right now. He continued, the graduation exam for specialist students can be changed to focus on medical ninjutsu. Hiruzen nodded approvingly. Mu Yue hadn't blurted this out in a meeting. He'd thought it through. All right, this will be entrusted to you and Tsunade. Draft a detailed plan and submit it for my approval. Neither objected. Tsunade, who could be stubborn about time and practicality, was on board. If you need help designing the training, ask me, Tsunade said, patting Mu Yue's shoulder and giving him a thumbs up. Not in the Hokage office, at least, Hiruzen muttered, shaking his head. Otherwise what? Should I write it? Will you approve it? Tsunade shot back bluntly. Hiruzen smiled helplessly. He'd been clear. He wasn't opposed to ideas, only to ones that didn't fit reality. Mu Yue accepted the assignment gladly. His shadow clone could handle the paperwork for him, but it would affect the academy, so it wasn't something to impose mid-semester. Implementing the program the next semester, he decided, would be fast enough. Mu Yue's days were already full. Several of his students had just graduated, but they still came to see him. Obito and the others dropped by whenever they could, so his schedule remained packed. Time moved quickly. Over the next 2.5 months, steady progress was made. Rin Nohara, working on the basic breathing technique, reached about half the intended progress. She could now focus her breathing to enhance her physical abilities. Metkai advanced his 8 gates training to the point he could open the 3rd gate and began practicing a rock-breathing constant state. Obito pushed his flame-breathing constant state training forward. His current goal was to maintain 24 hours of uninterrupted flame breathing. Kakashi still struggled with his reaction speed issue, but he improved his lightning blade, thunderclap flash, developing a variant he called the half flash, a technique that sacrificed some speed for greater explosive power, stronger than a full flash, but within his reaction limits. Shisui refined his fire release techniques to better suit his own style. With Tsunade's help, Mu Yue absorbed more medical ninjutsu knowledge and, by teaching, learned many ninjutsu across different elements, progress that helped address his own weaknesses. As July approached, one more responsibility landed on Mu Yue's plate. He was selected as an examiner for the chuunin exams. Chapter 295, Mei Terumi 2-in-1. That's odd. Minato-sensei is late today. Did he oversleep? Obito wondered aloud as he rushed onto the training ground and found Rin and Kakashi already there. You think Minato's like you? Kakashi said, looking at Obito with an exasperated expression. Obito had shown up just around the meeting time, yet here he was complaining about their teacher. As if you, Kakashi, have never been late, Obito shot back, clenching his fist defiantly. I have been late, Kakashi replied calmly, but far less often than you. He admitted he'd occasionally be late, insomnia, or an off-schedule now and then, but it was rare, maybe once a year. Obito, on the other hand, was perpetually late. For him, it had become expected. How dare you slander my good name? Obito widened his eyes dramatically. What late? I was helping people. How is helping others the same as being late? Being late simply means you didn't arrive at the agreed time, Kakashi said, and that one sentence shut down the argument. All right, all right. Rin smiled helplessly and changed the subject. Maybe Minato-sensei had something important come up. Besides, he's so fast he could be here any second. Sure enough, whoosh, Minato appeared before them the next moment. Sorry I'm a little late, he said, apologetic for a beat before breaking into a warm smile. Do you want to take part in the chuunin exams? I recommended you all. If you plan to, fill out these application forms. He pulled out 3 forms. Rin had been right. Minato had been at the Hokage building handling chuunin exam qualifications. Obito's eyes lit up. Chuunin exams? That means we might be promoted to chuunin. Yes, yes, yes! Kakashi, already a chuunin, felt a twinge of annoyance. Obito's excitement only reminded him that Obito could be ranked higher or lower relative to him on missions. Minato quickly clarified, worried Obito would assume that signing up guaranteed promotion. You still have to pass the exam to become a chuunin. You don't need to tell me, Obito said confidently. He had beaten several enemy chuunin on missions and believed his team was more than capable. Kakashi eyed the 3 forms in Minato's hand. 2 would have been enough. Sensei, am I supposed to participate too? Kakashi, aren't you already a chuunin? You can still enter the exam? Obito took his form, puzzled. If Kakashi was already a chuunin, why would he need to do this? Passing the chuunin exams 3 times in a row, does that make you a jonin? Obito asked, teasing. Kakashi fell silent. Even if he answered, he probably wouldn't know. Minato answered patiently. Kakashi, you should participate. Passing the chuunin exams multiple times doesn't make you a jonin. Jonin promotions are decided by the Hokage. He explained the special circumstances. Obito and Rin had only graduated in mid-March, about 1.5 months as genin, whereas the usual requirement was at least a year on average, often 3. The chuunin exams weren't open to everyone. They had time in service and mission record requirements. Obito's team was allowed because of the high-value missions Obito had completed during his internship. S-rank missions counted for a lot, and because Minato had recommended them. Still, the exam required a team, and given how recently Obito's team had graduated, Hiruzen had allowed Kakashi, a chuunin, to take part alongside them. Kakashi nodded, accepted his form, and felt oddly out of place. Taking the chuunin exams as a chuunin was strange. After leaving his previous official team, his life had kept drifting into stranger situations, forming a new team with students, running into unexpected missions, and now this. After they finished their forms, Obito warned with mock menace. Kakashi, don't you dare hold us back just because you're already a chuunin. Worry about yourself, Kakashi responded coolly. The first stage is a written test. Fail that, and you're out. His tone carried the quiet confidence of someone who'd once gotten a perfect score on the written. He could easily beat Obito there. A written test? Obito made a face, suddenly seeing a new kind of enemy. How do you pass it? It depends on the exam, Kakashi said. They change the requirements, but usually the passing threshold is around 60% or higher. Obito's face fell. 60% was a big challenge for him. Minato smiled encouragingly. Study and review. You'll be fine. I trust you. Obito forced a grin but wasn't as sure. He'd scored single digits back in Ninja Academy. He improved a bit in the 4th grade after Mu Yue tutored him, but then slipped again when he studied less theory. However, when in doubt, he trusted Mu Yue. If Mu Yue was in charge of the written test, Obito felt better. Indeed, Mu Yue had many duties in this chuunin exams, creating the written test and serving as chief examiner for the 2nd round, among other nominal tasks. He didn't have to work too hard. Some things could be handled with shadow clones, so it was within his acceptable bounds. If it became too busy, Mu Yue would just refuse and go study sealing techniques and medical ninjutsu instead. Meanwhile, on the road to Konoha's gate, Jiraiya grumbled to Mu Yue. This is ridiculous. We're at war, and they still invite other villages. Why can't they handle it themselves? And why do I have to greet them? Mu Yue smiled, but stayed silent. Complaining about high-level decisions in public wasn't his place. Hosting a chuunin exams like this during wartime is meant to show the daimyo and our allies Konoha's strength, Homura Mitokado said, stopping his steps. Hiruzen's team had held meetings and, since the war was progressing smoothly, decided to invite other villages, both small ones nearby, to secure their support, and one of the larger villages. They chose the Hidden Mist to participate. Sunagakure was occupied with its own troubles and thus left alone, while inviting only small villages would look like bullying the weak and wouldn't prove Konoha's strength. Hiruzen sent you because he values you. Don't waste his effort, Utatane Koharu told Jiraiya sternly. She and Jiraiya were old classmates of Hiruzen. Both could read his intentions. Jiraiya, however, had no desire to be Hokage. He just wanted the war to end so he could resume traveling. The two advisors watched him with the kind of disappointment you give to iron you can't forge. At the gate, they adjusted their faces and smiled as the Hidden Mist team approached. They didn't have to greet every village. Only another of the 5 great Shinobi villages received that honor. Small villages showed their IDs and entered on their own. Mu Yue stayed quiet in the group and used appraisal technique on the Hidden Mist members as they came closer. Appraisal results. Name, Genshi Chakra, 74,000. Skills, Water Release Nature Transformation, Mastered. Hidden Mist Technique, Mastered. Water Release, Water Dragon Bullet Technique, Mastered. An old man with a snake-shaped wooden staff, appearing 65 to 70. His stats were impressive. Mu Yue estimated he was at Hidden Mist Elder level. Still, at that age, the gap to someone like Danzo would show in a real fight. Name, Mei Terumi. Chakra, 4000. Potential, S skills, water release nature transformation. Proficient, 2200s 3000. Lava release, proficient 1000 3000. Boil release. The future 5th Mizukage, though now a flat-chested, red-haired child about the same age as Kakashi and the others, her talent was obvious. She could block Madara's fire with water release, so her stats were excellent. Name, Zabuza Momochi. Chalk 3600. Skills, water release nature transformation, proficient 900 3000. Hidden mist technique, proficient. Zabuza appeared about the same age as Kakashi, young but already fearsome. Bandages covered the lower half of his face, and his cold gaze suggested he disliked everyone. Name, Kisame Hoshigaki. 7000 skills. Water release nature transformation, proficient 2400 3000. Water release, water prison technique, proficient. Water release, water dragon bullet technique, proficient. Kiss, aim looked older than Kakashi by 2 or 3 years. His features were more defined. Mu Yue thought the chakra level looked more like a jonin than a genin. If Hidden Mist planned to cause trouble, Mu Yue wondered if this was part of the original timeline or a butterfly effect. Mu Yue didn't know the whole plot of the Third Shinobi World War, only fragments. Hidden Mist and Konoha would fight later, but he wasn't sure if Hidden Mist's participation in these chuunin exams was expected. Judging from the Hidden Mist team's strength, it seemed they wanted to outshine Konoha. Still, with Konoha's leaders involved, this team wasn't going to cause real trouble. Hiruzen wouldn't need to act personally. Jiraiya alone could handle them. It might simply be a coincidence that some of Mu Yue's own students were participating too. Mu Yue's appraisal lingered on the names he recognized. Their talents were obvious, and the exam promised to be interesting. Teacher Yamamura, this mission is just to do well in the chuunin exams in Konoha, right? Mei Terumi asked, glancing toward the Leaf Village as it grew nearer. Yes, just use your full strength, as always, Yamamura Soki replied. Hidden Mist had not expected Konoha to invite them to its chuunin exams. As an island nation, the Land of Water rarely took part in the continent's affairs, but an invitation was an invitation. Hidden Mist would not shy away from it. The village saw this as a chance to raise its name on the continent and to take measure of Konoha's strength. Intelligence teams did watch the wars on the mainland, but Yamamura and his squad had a simple brief: perform well in the exams, beat the Konoha contestants if they could, and secure a good ranking. Yamamura felt confident. His team included a prodigy, 9-year-old Mei Terumi, who already wielded 2 Kekkei Genkai and was highly skilled in water release. By the way, that shark-faced guy, Kisame Hoshigaki, he's a chuunin, right? Why is he taking the chuunin exams? Mei asked under her breath, eyes flicking to Kisame's unmistakable profile among the Hidden Mist contingent. He was demoted after failing a mission. Don't pry into that, Yamamura said casually. During the exam, fight with everything you've got. Better results bring better rewards from the village. Survival of the fittest was the law of Hidden Mist, and Yamamura hoped his disciples would go far. Mei accepted the answer without further questions. In Hidden Mist's ruthless atmosphere, knowing what not to ask could be as important as knowing what to ask. Still, she filed Kisame away in the back of her mind as a major rival for the top spots. As they drew near, Mei saw Konoha's giant gate rising ahead. Compared to the tall, austere stone buildings of Hidden Mist, Konoha's mostly 2-story structures seemed small and pleasantly bustling. That quick, proud thought, our buildings are taller, passed like a reflex. If she could win first place in a chuunin exam jointly held by 2 of the 5 great shinobi villages, Mei thought, the village would finally notice her. Even Lord Genshi and the 3rd Mizukage might look at her differently. For a 9-year-old, taking first in such an exam would mark her as a genius among geniuses, and it would be a solid step toward her ultimate goal, becoming Mizukage and changing Hidden Mist's oppressive ways. She loved the village, the misty mornings, the eerie beauty, but hated its suffocating cruelty. Becoming Mizukage would let her make Hidden Mist a place she could truly love. On arrival, the Konoha delegation greeted them at the gate. Mei scanned the faces, searching for potential opponents, and met the gaze of Mu Yue. He was using an appraisal technique on her. When their eyes locked, Mei widened hers in challenge, trying to look more imposing despite the age difference. Mu Yue returned only a warm smile and moved on to the next appraisal. It was late June. The air had already taken on summer's heat, and Mu Yue's golden hair and gentle smile seemed to glow in the sun. Mei, unused to such openness, found his smile almost disconcertingly warm. In Hidden Mist, smiles were rare and often false. Pleasantries over, the two teams went into Konoha and toured a hotel in the main district. Mei had never been to the Land of Fire before. She'd done missions on nearby islands, but never on the continent. Konoha struck her as more prosperous, more relaxed than Hidden Mist. People laughed, real laughter, and shops lined the streets. The sight of so many storefronts and the sweet scent of desserts drifting through the air paused her steps. For a moment she wanted to go in, but she pulled herself back. "You're here to gather information, not to buy sweets," she told herself. Becoming Mizukage was more important than a pastry. She wandered the main district to learn the streets and to avoid getting lost, careful to keep out of trouble. Yamamura had told her to move with teammates, but Mei's teammates were precisely the sort she avoided outside missions. She preferred to work alone. Standing in front of a dessert shop, "Need help?" a voice asked. A red-haired boy approached, Obito Uchiha, who had been meaning to ask Mu Yue for help with his grades. He offered awkwardly, "Did you forget your money? I can lend it." Mei instinctively recoiled and gathered chakra for a water release before she realized what was happening. She straightened and said, "I'm not here to buy desserts." Obito blinked. He noticed Mei's forehead protector bore no Konoha mark. "You're not from our village?" "Obviously," Mei said, annoyed. "I'm a Hidden Mist shinobi, invited to your chuunin exams." Obito went wide-eyed. There are ninja from other villages in the chuunin exams? The thought thrilled him. If he beat outside shinobi and got first place, his standing, especially in Rin Nohara's eyes, would soar. "You're in the chuunin exams too?" Mei studied him. He seemed a little foolish, but that didn't deter his enthusiasm. "Of course," Obito puffed up. "I'll become a chuunin for sure." Mei doubted any child could truly attain chuunin rank so young, but she kept her skepticism to herself. She didn't compare herself with her peers. Her competitors were the older ninja, the ones whose power truly mattered. Having 2 bloodline limits gave her that confidence. "I'm Obito Uchiha. If you don't need anything, goodbye." Obito waved and trotted off toward the south border forest, where Mu Yue often trained. He had promised Rin he'd be a chuunin. The written exam worried him most. Obito's hunch paid off. A quick scan showed Mu Yue, whether main body or shadow clone was anyone's guess, coaching Shisui on fire release. Obito jogged up, clasped his hands, and bowed. "Teacher Mu Yue, please help me with theory." A slap landed on Obito's forehead as a shadow clone of Mu Yue laughed. "What's this? Don't you always say theory is useless?" the clone teased. "The written exam exists," Obito moaned, rubbing his temple. "I told Rin I'd become a chuunin. If I fail because of the written part, Kakashi will laugh, and Rin will be disappointed." Mu Yue had already set the chuunin exam's questions. Anticipating students like Obito, he'd prepared practice tests. The clone smiled. "Come to my place tonight. There's something that'll help," he said, pulling Obito up. Obito's face lit at first with fanciful hope of some miraculous tool, some knowledge bread that would imprint theory into his head. But then reality dawned. Practice tests. His expression shifted, sweat prickling down his brow as he remembered once losing track of time, buried in problems. The prospect of hours of practice made him nervous. The shadow clone Mu Yue only smiled gently and nodded. In the evening, Mu Yue finished his lesson with Tsunade and walked back toward his home in the main district. A stall owner glanced at a red-haired girl standing in front of his cart, lost in thought, and called out, "Are you still deciding? If not, I'm closing up and going home. You've been standing there for almost an hour." Mei Terumi didn't answer. She was agonizing over which ice cream to choose, strawberry, vanilla, or chocolate. Chocolate held a special place in her heart. It was the first flavor she'd ever tasted and the one that opened her eyes to how wonderful ice cream could be. Vanilla came later and quickly became her favorite for its fresh taste. Strawberry, however, remained a mystery. She'd never even had a strawberry, much less strawberry ice cream. One was nostalgia, One was a current favorite, and one was an unexplored novelty. That made the choice feel impossible. Each option had a good reason. You could get all three, Mu Yue said, passing by the cart. He'd seen indecision like this before. In his previous life, he could spend an hour picking a takeout place, so he understood. Mei's dilemma struck him as smaller, but still familiar. Mei's eyes widened. You can do that? For a moment, it was as if a new world had opened. She was a ninja now. She didn't need to ask an adult for money. She could buy as much as she wanted. Please give me 2 of each, she decided, instantly doubling her order to 6 portions. The owner packed them up and handed her the bag. If he weren't closing for dinner, he wouldn't have minded Mei lingering. Customers always made the stall look better, but he had to lock up eventually. Mu Yue resumed his walk home. He hadn't meant to get involved. He just offered a simple suggestion. He had no intention of more interaction. She was from Kirigakure, and although he felt little real loyalty toward Konoha, he preferred to keep the surface appearances of his life intact. Hey, you, stop being so enthusiastic, Mei called after him before she could help herself, half embarrassed. Mu Yue turned. Was she being polite or rude? She'd coined a nickname out of the blue, but then used honorifics. Consider this payment for earlier, Mei added, fumbling in the bag. She reluctantly pulled out one of the strawberry cones and held it out to him. In her mind, Mu Yue, an adult and a Konoha shinobi, wouldn't want a gift from a child of another village. Giving it away was both repayment and a way to keep her dignity, since it's not like he had asked for it. Mu Yue accepted with a small smile. He knew how this went. Refuse and something awkward might follow. Accept and let the moment end cleanly. Thank you, he said, and turned back toward his home. Mei stared after him in stunned silence. He walked away so decisively. This wasn't how she'd imagined it. Who was this man who simply took an ice cream from a 9-year-old? She reached out instinctively, but then stopped, too embarrassed to call him back and ask for it. She had given it away. There was no use. I'm such an idiot, she muttered. The almost vanished ice cream left her eyes dull. Maybe, she told herself, the strawberry wasn't even that good. At least she still had the vanilla and the chocolate. She found a bench in the park and started eating. She ate the vanilla first, her favorite, and smiled with genuine contentment at the first spoonful. She'd planned to save the chocolate for second, but curiosity won out. When she tried the strawberry with pieces of fruit in it, surprise lit her face. It was even better than the vanilla. Relief and disappointment rushed through her together. The new flavor was wonderful, and she had given one away. That night, even in bed, Mei couldn't shake the image of the blonde man's smile and the lost strawberry cone. There had been 2 delicious strawberry ice creams right in front of her, and she hadn't cherished them. If she had another chance. On the morning of July 1st, the chuunin exams officially began. With so many shinobi coming to the Ninja Academy for the exam, many from other villages, the school gave students the day off to avoid unnecessary complications. The chuunin exams already? I didn't think we'd be able to take part so soon. A few months ago, chuunin felt like something else entirely, Shiranui Genma said, gazing at the academy gate. A few months before, he hadn't even been a genin. Back then, chuunin had seemed like a remote, impressive rank. Participating doesn't mean you'll become a chuunin, Ebisu said sensibly. We're only able to take the exam because of Metkai. Their situation was similar to Obito's. Metgai's reputation and strength had convinced their instructor, Teacher Chen, that taking the chuunin exams was reasonable. To avoid disappointment, Teacher Chen had told Genma and Ebisu up front that while their abilities were strong for their age, promotion to chuunin would be difficult, and they shouldn't have high expectations. No expectations, no disappointment. Heh, Genma said, hooking his arm through Ebisu's. But people need dreams, right? Kakashi was a chuunin at 6. We're 9. Maybe we'll make it. Just do your best in the exam, Metkai urged with a bright grin and a thumbs up. Even if you fail, you won't have regrets. Ebisu nodded. He talked pessimistically, but he'd signed up. How could he not hope a little? Metkai, you and your team are here too. Obito waved as he saw them approaching. Of course, Genma said with a smile. You too, right? Yep, we'll pass it on the first try and become chuunin. Obito laughed loudly. Seeing Kakashi walking over lit a fire in Metkai. Rival, let's have a youthful, passionate competition. Let's see whose chuunin exam score is better. Kakashi accepted calmly. All right, let's compare the results of the first stage. My youth is burning, Metkai said, thrilled that Kakashi accepted so readily. He wanted the exam to start immediately. Ebisu watched the exchange and felt a twinge of unease. Kakashi was already a chuunin, yet he seemed to be participating. He also noticed Kakashi wasn't wearing the standard chuunin vest, which only deepened his confusion. Kakashi, are you taking the chuunin exams with Obito and the others? He asked. Kakashi's expression softened into something unreadable. After a moment, he answered, yes. For various reasons, I'll be taking this chuunin exams. Ebisu's face darkened. A chuunin competing in the exams made the path to promotion feel even steeper. I hope Kakashi is the only exception, he thought uneasily. Genma and Metkai didn't see anything odd. To them, it was natural for Kakashi, one of their teammates, to be taking the exam alongside their friends. As the hour approached, more and more shinobi arrived at the academy. Ebisu noticed several from other villages: Rain, the Hidden Waterfall, the Grass Village, Hiragakure, reading their headbands easily enough. Asuma, you're taking it too, someone called, and Asuma, who had graduated last year, joined the group. He was participating in the chuunin exams for the first time as well. Is that allowed? Obito asked, scratching his head. His question made Asuma laugh. He'd trained hard since his special training ended and felt much stronger now. If you meet me in a later match, you'll be surprised. I've improved a lot too, Obito said confidently, apart from his nerves about the written test. The 9 of them chatted their way to the designated exam building, took their assigned seats in the room, and waited. 10 minutes before the exam began, the proctors entered and began to announce the rules for the first stage of the chuunin exams. 298. When in trouble, look for a time machine. First, I am Shimono Hisanobu, the chief examiner announced. He was in charge of the theoretical portion of the first stage of the chuunin exams. The exam lasts until 10 o'clock. There are 10 questions. The perfect score is 100. Anyone who scores below 70 will be eliminated immediately. If one member of a team is eliminated, the whole team is out. Shimono wrote the time on the blackboard and looked over the classroom. 70 points, he repeated. Kakashi's eyes flicked to Obito 2 rows back. 70 was hardly a high bar for Kakashi, but he doubted Obito could reach it on his own. Shimono continued, You may try to complete the paper any way you can, provided you are not caught. If you are caught cheating 5 times, your exam qualification will be revoked. He paused, then added, almost conversationally, cheating is allowed. It's part of the exam. The chuunin exams test comprehensive ability, not just individual skill. If you can't do it yourself, you can obtain information from others. A ripple ran through the room. To prevent the exam from being impossible for anyone here, Shimono went on, Konoha periodically places ninja among the examinees using the transformation technique to write down the correct answers. Obito's stomach clenched. 70 points wasn't just the line for passing, it was high. He had been practicing hard these past days, but his last practice test had only scored in the 60s. He closed his eyes for a moment and silently clasped his hands. Almighty Mu Yue, please take me back 7 days so I can study another week, he prayed. If Mu Yue didn't pull through, Obito thought he'd be doomed. He couldn't bear to fail the first stage because his theory was lacking and drag Rin down with him. Then he noticed the exam paper. Something about it looked familiar. Obito scanned the questions. His worry dissolved into joy. Each of the 10 problems mirrored exercises he'd done recently. Mu Yue had explained them. The exact wording varied, but not by much. Mu Yue is indeed almighty, Obito thought, and began writing feverishly. Kakashi watched Obito's sudden burst of confidence and wondered whether it was a coincidence. Kakashi already knew most things in the chuunin scope, so he wasn't surprised if the paper was within his grasp. He started answering at speed, too. If Obito couldn't manage it, Kakashi planned to finish quickly and pass the answers over. Metkai, who also struggled with theory, breathed a relieved sigh when he recognized the paper. Mu Yue hadn't forgotten him. He'd told Obito to take 2 sets of practice questions that day, and 1 had been given to Guy. Ebisu, sitting behind Guy, didn't know about Guy's recent cram session. He was simply glad his seat put him within easy reach to copy answers. At the start, the test room was the sound of rustling pencils. Almost everyone was writing. No one had finished, so copying was difficult. Halfway through the exam, Shimono called out calmly, "Row 4, seat 5, you and your teammate can leave." A pair of grass ninja froze, disbelief on their faces. "But, aren't there 5 warnings?" "Yes," Shimono said, "but you've already been caught 5 times." The rest of the room went suddenly alert. "No warnings this time. Reach the limit and you're out." The grass ninja left with expressions of stunned disappointment, their teammate following. The atmosphere tightened immediately. Seizing the moment, Zabuza used the hidden mist technique. A thick white fog rolled through the classroom in an instant. Within the mist, Zabuza snatched answers from his teammate and began to furiously copy them. Kakashi had already finished and had prepared answers for Obito. Seeing the rising mist, he remembered the layout and flung the paper toward Obito's row. Ebisu, admiring the boldness of the foreign ninja, passed answers forward to Guy as quickly as he could. The mist came and went in a breath. Proctors dispersed it with wind release, and the room cleared as if nothing had happened. The students, now just showing normal exam concentration, continued writing. "Time's up," Shimono announced when 10 o'clock arrived. "Stop writing. The results will be announced at 1 p.m. Obito left his seat relaxed. This had been the easiest test he'd faced since he started studying theory. "How do you think you did?" Rin asked as they walked out. She had planned to pass answers to him mid-test, but Obito had given her a look that said he didn't need help, so she trusted him. "Definitely 70 or more," Obito said without hesitation. Rin smiled, relieved. "Then the first stage should be no problem." Kakashi nodded. He had handed every answer to Obito. If Obito had copied them, there was no way he would fail. "So it was you, Kakashi," Rin started to say, thankful. Obito cut her off. "What do you mean spoon-fed? I didn't copy the answers you threw over. I wrote them myself." He didn't want all the credit to go to Kakashi. He admitted Kakashi had helped, but he claimed he'd only glanced at the answers. His real savior was Mu Yue. Kakashi studied him, then asked, "Are you sure?" "Of course," Obito said, puffing his chest. Kakashi smirked. "That could be troublesome then, Rin. If he fails, you'll be eliminated with him." Obito bristled. "Hey, what do you mean I can't score 70 on my own? Have you ever scored 70 in a Ninja Academy exam?" Kakashi shot back. "That was before," Obito said. "Now I have Mu Yue helping me." "Well, we'll know at 1 o'clock, Kakashi said. He wasn't entirely convinced, but hearing Mu Yue's name made him feel a little more confident about Obito than he had earlier. 299, second exam. It was almost 12:50 when Obito dragged Rin and Kakashi over to the notice board to wait for the posted results. "So many people," he said, staring at the crowd. He'd thought it best to come early, but he hadn't expected so many others to be just as eager. "We can wait here," Rin said with a smile. "This is a promotion exam. Everyone's excited." Obito nodded and stood beside her, not trying to push in. A few minutes later, 2 chuunin wearing vests arrived. The semicircle of students around the board parted, and the proctors began to post the scores. "Phew, 71. If I'd missed one more, I'd be out," someone breathed a sigh of relief. "You idiot. I gave you the answers, and you only got 67? You didn't even pass stage 1 on your first try," another grumbled to his companion. Everyone at the board was frantically searching for names and scores. Kakashi nearby watched the jostling with calm detachment. This kind of anxiety usually meant poor confidence in one's result. If you were certain you'd passed, you wouldn't be so desperate. Hearing others talking, Obito shoved his way toward the board. He wasn't afraid of failing. He just wanted his score to rub Kakashi's nose in it. He slipped into total concentration breathing and used his physical edge to work his way through the press. From the front, he immediately spotted Kakashi's name at the very top with a 3-digit score. Obito ignored Kakashi's and scanned down for his own. "Rin, you got 88, 18 points above the pass line," Obito blurted, catching sight of Rin's score first. "So you passed?" Kakashi asked casually. He wasn't worried about Rin. Obito was the only real question mark in their team for the theory portion. "Kakashi, come look." Obito didn't answer directly, so he just waved Kakashi over. By then, many people who'd been crowding the board had finished checking their results, so there were fewer bodies to push through. Kakashi moved easily to Obito's side. 80 points. Kakashi, say something. Obito pointed at his name, grinning like he'd achieved something monumental. Kakashi glanced down. Obito had indeed scored 80. He looked a little surprised. 80 wasn't an outstanding score, but for Obito it was unexpectedly high. Obito's smugness was visible from across the field. "What do you expect me to say?" Kakashi said coolly. "If you'd answered 2 more problems, you'd have had a perfect score." Obito fell silent for a beat. Kakashi, with his perfect score, had obviously nailed all 10 questions. Obito could have gotten 100 with 2 more correct answers. "Obito's amazing. Last time at the Ninja Academy he couldn't even crack 50, and now he gets 80. He must have studied hard," Rin said softly. "Heh, it wasn't that serious," Obito replied modestly at Rin's praise. Just then Metkai and Asuma came to check the board. "Excellent, everyone passed." Metkai boomed, giving Shiranui, Genma, and Ibisu a thumbs up. Asuma checked his own results and nodded. "Same for us. Let's work hard and become chuunin." "We'll all make it." Obito pumped his fist. It was their first chuunin exams together. Everyone was excited. "Is Konoha's chuunin exam child's play then? Let's all work hard together," Zabuza sneered as he walked past. "Who knows? Maybe," his companion shrugged. "What do you mean by that?" Asuma bristled. The implication insulted Konoha as much as it did them. "Exactly what it sounds like," Zabuza replied flatly. He was annoyed by the Konoha teamwork and friendliness. Back in the Hidden Mist, they'd been taught to kill their classmates from the academy on. The contrast rankled. "You'd better take that back," Obito snapped, stepping beside Asuma. He wasn't going to be polite to an arrogant outsider. "Zabuza, Kurosawa, don't cause trouble," Kisame Hoshigaki said calmly. Outside Konoha they might fight, but here it was inappropriate, especially during the exams. They had a mission to complete. Kisame then led the way toward the explanation point for the second stage of the exam. Zabuza followed him. The two weren't originally on the same team. They'd formed a temporary partnership for the exams. Zabuza listened because Kisame was strong, not because he was captain. "What rude people. If I meet them in later rounds, I'll give them a proper lesson," Obito declared, clenching his fist. He'd beaten many chuunin in fights before, and believed he could dominate here as well. "Don't underestimate them," Kakashi warned. "I can't say about the others, but that shark-faced one won't be weak." Kakashi couldn't use sensing jutsu now, but he sensed something unusual about Kisame. The man's aura felt different from ordinary ninjas. "I might have done a bit worse than you in theory, but in practical combat I won't have any problem," Obito said confidently. "Ha! Confidence to match mine." Metkai grinned and gave Obito a hearty thumbs up. "You guys," Kakashi shook his head. Obito's arrogance could land him in trouble. Against ordinary genin, Obito would be fine, but this was the chuunin exams. Other villages' teams might include strong, proven young fighters. Kakashi suspected Hidden Mist had some capable youngsters here too. Obito might not be able to win so easily if he ran into them. They all gathered in a large open area beside the ninja school's teaching building. After waiting half an hour for all qualified students to assemble, Hayate Mugetsu strode in before them with 2 chuunin aides. "I am Hayate Mugetsu, chief examiner for the second stage," he said succinctly. "Mugetsu-sensei," Obito waved happily at the examiner. Mei Terumi puffed out her cheeks and glared. "That's the guy who ate one of my strawberry ice creams," she muttered, firmly filing the name Hayate Mugetsu away. She also glanced at Obito, memorizing his face in case she wanted to take her revenge on him later. Mugetsu smiled at Obito and went on, "Before I announce the rules, you must all sign a consent form." The 2 chuunin began handing out the forms. Every examinee received one. Because in this exam you may be injured or even die. It was essentially a death waiver. Once signed, examinees could use any means against opponents. Killing an opponent would not bring legal responsibility. "You may choose not to sign," Mugetsu added, "but if even one person on a team refuses, the whole team forfeits." "This is a real consent form? This exam's dangerous," some first-time chuunin murmured. "So it's like real combat," Obito said, scratching his head. He didn't feel fazed. To him, it simply removed the restraints on exam battles. "Asuma, should we sign?" Raido Namiyashi asked. "Of course," Asuma replied, signing without hesitation. "If you're afraid of getting hurt, you shouldn't be a ninja." Kurenai Yui also signed decisively. Within minutes, everyone had signed. no one forfeited. These were young ninjas raised in an academy where killing was taught. When life and death were at stake, they showed courage. Mugetsu then unrolled a map of the Death Forest. This is the venue for the second stage, a circular area enclosed by an iron fence. The straight-line distance from the fence to Baki is about 10 kilometers. There are many poisonous insects and fierce beasts inside. He held up 2 scrolls, one white, one dark. Each team will receive an initial scroll, either a heaven scroll or an earth scroll. No matter which you get first, you must collect both types and then reach Baki to complete the exam. You have 5 days. If you cannot collect both the heaven and earth scrolls and reach Baki within 5 days, your team will be eliminated. 300. Battle for the scrolls. That sounds pretty simple, so we only have to beat one team to pass the exam, right? Obito brightened at the rules. Compared to the last exam, this one seemed easy. If we're lucky, yes, Kakashi nodded. 10 kilometers wasn't far for a shinobi. The true point of this exam was snatching scrolls. Then at least half the people will be out after this, right? Rin did the math aloud. In the last chuunin exams, only a handful of teams failed the written portion. Most had passed. This round would be different. More than half. At best, only a third will make it through. Kakashi shook his head. All teams would attack, but not everyone would grab a matching scroll quickly. Some would keep fighting. He suspected 1/3 surviving was optimistic. Some troublemakers wouldn't stop once they had a scroll, increasing the casualties. If it comes down to luck, that's bad. We probably won't stumble on a match right away. With you around, Kakashi, something weird always happens. Obito said this, already expecting a run of bad luck. Maybe you're just the unlucky one. We've always been on the same team, after all. Kakashi shot back. How am I unlucky? I root for enemies to show up. That would prove my good luck. Obito protested, convinced he was being misunderstood. Each team sends one person to get a scroll. The chuunin in charge of distribution called out. Kakashi looked over. The collection point was a small wooden hut with only a front and back door, no windows. Rin, you go in and get the scroll. Once you have it, hide it immediately and don't show it. Kakashi decided quickly. The match had already begun with the scroll distribution. Knowing whether other teams held a heaven scroll or an earth scroll mattered. Obito, you and I will watch people coming out. If anyone doesn't hide their scroll, memorize their face and which scroll they have. You remember which is which, right? Mu Yue-sensei just told me. How could I forget? White is the heaven scroll. Dark is the earth scroll. Obito bristled. He wasn't going to be underestimated. But he didn't argue further. He and Kakashi split up to watch both doors. After watching 5 teams come out, Kakashi realized the distribution was entirely random. Other ninjas had noticed the watching glances too, but didn't make a fuss. They warned teammates quietly and gathered information with peripheral sight. Those with special abilities used them outright. Hyuga members activated Byakugan to check scrolls. Aburame Shinobi sent insects into the hut to scout. When it was Meiterumi's turn, she wrapped the wooden house in a thick mist with a water release, hidden mist technique, obscuring the doors. When Kurosawa received his scroll, he immediately held it up for everyone to see. We got the Earth Scroll. Whoever's got the guts, come and take it. His arrogance rippled through the crowd. No one verbally declared their intention to snatch his scroll. That would immediately expose their own. Kasame Hoshigaki stayed impassive. Kurosawa's showmanship wasn't random. His team was making a statement in Konoha's chuunin exams. Behind him were dangerous figures. A ruthlessly efficient 9-year-old Zabuza who'd killed his classmates, 13-year-old Kurosawa who had been promoted to chuunin 3 years earlier, and the 11-year-old Kisame with unusually large reserves of chakra and strength. With that makeup, the Hidden Mist officials weren't handing them a normal exam. Rin tucked the scroll into her ninja tool pouch as soon as she had it, then hurried to meet Kakashi and Obito. Kakashi pulled them to a quiet stretch of the testing ground and spoke in low tones. We got the Heaven Scroll, Rin whispered. Then we need to get an Earth Scroll, Kakashi said, cataloging teams he knew had Earth Scrolls. Besides Kurosawa, he identified 5 other teams with Earth Scrolls and started memorizing the faces of their members. As he watched, he noticed many teams were already targeting them, mostly foreign shinobi, a large number from the Hidden Mist. Their trio looked Ike easy prey, 3 kids under 10. If they were near their own gates, they should still be recent genin, a hidden mist Shinobi muttered. It's common for fighters to pick on the weak rather than challenge the strong. Bullies hunt easy targets. Not only Kakashi's team, but also teams with Metkai and Asuma were being eyed. Some of the Konoha participants recognized Kakashi and decided he wasn't their primary target. Some were his seniors from the Ninja Academy, others genin who'd taken the exams with him before. His reputation offered a little protection. Watching the hostile stares, Ebisu adjusted his sunglasses nervously. A bead of sweat formed on his forehead. He hadn't been as quick to react as Kakashi, but he soon guarded his team's scroll information carefully. Still, it was unnerving. Many teams didn't care which scroll others had. They just wanted to snatch one and viewed this team as easy pickings. Facing seniors who had graduated 3 or 5 years earlier left Ebisu feeling rattled. Shiranui Genma lost his composed smile too. The pressure was obvious. It's all right. Believe in your youth. Metkai boomed. Hands clapped heavily on their shoulders. His blinding grin relaxed, edges of tension in the crowd. With might like his backing, advancing still felt possible. 15 minutes after scrolls were handed out, Mu Yue called the examinees to the next phase and began directing them toward their assigned entrance points.